my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon. Whatever it is for you, I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 517. Welcome in to the podcasting pickup. I am in a town called Steilacoom, Washington. I don't know why it's called that, but I'm also not going to make fun of it because it's really pretty here. It kind of reminds me of, it's like if Hawaii was not tropical and very wet and very rainy. So it's a place on the Washington coast. It's beautiful here. I really like it. I happened here by accident. I found a park along the beach called Sunnyside Beach Parking Lot, where I think people fish here. It's a great spot to record because there's no one here. There's cars driving by. There's a train. Holy crap. Can you hear or see that? There's a train right behind me. I don't know. I don't know, man. That was wild. Didn't expect a train to happen. It is, what time is it? 3:30 on the dot, and the train is going through town. That's pretty wild. Hope we're doing well. It is relentlessly raining outside. I think it kind of adds like an ambiance behind the scenes. As like, man, the train could not have been worse timing, by the way. Like, can you hear it? I'm sure you can hear it in the background. It's very loud. And we're almost to the end of the train, so I'm not going to stop recording because, like, that would be silly just to wait, like, 30 seconds. I don't know. Maybe that's the right thing to do. I don't know. Let me cut 1 second. That was hilarious and amazing timing in some way. Like, of all times, right as I start recording a podcast, bam, a train goes by. Of course, I didn't even realize there were train tracks there, but that happened. Here we are. I am, for anyone who cares, I am officially moved into my truck. It's been 6 months, basically, of trying to make this happen. I have slept in my truck. I slept in there 2 nights ago. It was a little cold, not going to lie. I think it's time to head south, although it's the beginning of November, and I feel weird. I want to go to Arizona really bad, but, like, I'm so close to Thanksgiving. Should I just wait it out till Thanksgiving and then take off, like, to be with my family? I'm full of guilt leaving if I do leave now. So I don't know, man. I may or may not make it to Thanksgiving. I'm not sure. It's been a weird week, a busy week. My plan next week is to do an episode on Tuesday and Friday, finally. It's been chaos in my life trying to figure everything out. This is going to be, I basically combined 2 episodes today. So this is basically Tuesday's episode and Friday's episode all smushed into one. I think this is probably going to be the longest episode I have ever done of this podcast. Some people love that. Some people hate that. I almost didn't do an episode this week. I did all the work to prepare the episode and was like, well, am I too late? Will anyone care? I am too late, but if anyone cares, here you are. We'll be better next week. I'm homeless. I live in a truck, and moving into the truck was a lot of problem solving that had to happen to make that happen. So here we are, and I'm excited, man. I'm not going to lie. I thought this week, like, I love making content. It's my favorite thing on the planet. I will always make content, whether I make money or not. Till the day I die, I will make stuff because it's who I am. I'm creative. I like building stuff in my truck. I like making videos. It's really hard to do this show because of how time sensitive it is. Like, we're on Friday afternoon talking about football games from Sunday, and that sucks. I don't like that. I really want this to be the last. I feel like I say this every episode, and I really want this to be the last time I say that for whoever knows how long. Like, my life has been chaos as I called off my engagement, moved from Hawaii, was homeless for a while. I'm still homeless, but at least I have a place that I own that's mine now. So here we are. Enjoy what I think is going to be a really good episode. Like, I put my heart and soul into this one. I'm very proud. A lot of stuff to talk about today. It's going to be awesome. I think it's really good for continuity's sake to not skip a week or, to talk about last week is important to me because the games last week during NFL Week 8 build on what's going to happen this week in Week 7. So I don't think you can skip a week, even though I really got this close to based on what was going on behind the scenes. That's stories for Zach Schaumler talking my other podcast. But here we are. Welcome in. Let's start by talking about Thursday night football. Last night, Philly beat Houston 29-17. And it was actually somehow a decent game. You've got the team with the best record in the NFL playing against Houston, and credit to Houston, man, they made a game. They made it interesting. It was actually tied 14-14 at halftime, and I feel like I need to speak up and defend Houston a bit here because they are not an absolutely garbage football team. They're not as awful as people would like to make you think. They're just mostly a young team. And I've seen stuff like on Twitter and Instagram, people saying things like, this team couldn't even beat the best college team. I'm like, guys, that's ridiculous. These are professionals. They would still destroy Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee. I don't think it's really fair. Like, people don't realize how much talent Houston has. Like, from a football perspective, yeah, they're not the best NFL team, but they are still, like, Philip Dorsett made a great play deep last night. They've got some good players everywhere, and I kind of just feel bad for the Houston Texans quarterback, Davis Mills. He's in his second year in the NFL. He was a third-round pick. He's really pretty solid. Like, he really does do a lot of good stuff. He's accurate. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. He's not a terrible decision-maker. He had one interception that I didn't like. It was a 3rd and 6. He forced it. His second interception late in the game was like 3rd and 17, 2 minutes left, you're down 12 points. It's a guy trying to make a play. Like, you can't, I don't know. I just think people don't realize that, you know, he has no help around him. And I say that as like, I just defend Houston isn't terrible. But there's just not a lot going for them in Houston. They're young and they're trying. But if you put Davis Mills in Dallas, I think he would be outstanding. I think he could do very, very well on that Cowboys roster. If you put him on a better football team, I think Davis Mills would be succeeding a lot. I think he would be great, for example, if Houston doesn't want Davis Mills, send him to New Orleans and allow him to play with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas if he ever plays again, and Jarvis Landry and that offensive line, and Alvin Kamara and that good defense. I mean, I really think Davis Mills could succeed on a lot of other teams, and because he's in Houston, I think he gets overlooked and people don't realize how, like, he's not an amazing quarterback, but he's a very solid, a little bit above decent quarterback. And the only thing Davis Mills really can't do is run around and extend plays. And so if Houston does, in fact, decide to draft a quarterback and replace Davis Mills, it's got to be someone who's got the ability to run. I think of Bryce Young from Alabama. He can run around, extend plays, escape sacks. I mean, that's a skill that Davis Mills does not have. But if Houston decides to replace Davis Mills and they draft someone who can't run around, a more of a pocket guy, I think almost every quarterback available in the draft this fall or this spring in 2023, I think every guy who's not a mobile quarterback is a lateral move going from Davis Mills to that guy. Insert any name there. I think Davis Mills would win with a good team around him. And I just want it clear, if Houston does ever move on from Davis Mills, it must be to a quarterback who can run around and extend plays. Otherwise, I'm not really going to support it unless something crazy happens and they get like Aaron Rodgers. But for the most part, Davis Mills is not the main problem in Houston. And it's really sad to me that he's going to probably get treated badly and be overlooked because he plays in Houston. By the way, I love the Houston Texans running back, Dameon Pierce. He's a rookie 4th-round pick. He had 27 carries for 139 yards against Philly. The dude runs really hard. He's probably easily going to run for over 1,000 yards this fall. And it really just reinforces my belief. Dameon Pierce getting drafted in the 4th round and being so good so quickly. That, and then remember in 2020, James Robinson was a undrafted rookie free agent in Jacksonville, ran for over 1,000 yards. Like, you just never, ever need to draft a running back in the 1st round. It's a waste of a 1st-round pick because you can find really good running back talent later in the draft, and Houston did with Dameon Pierce. Also, shout out to the Texans uniform combo. I liked it. The red helmets, the red jerseys. A couple guys had all red socks and cleats. I thought that looked really good with the white pants. The red helmet was a cool addition to the Houston Texans uniform combo. Now, we got to talk about Philly. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts looked really good, man. 21 for 27 passing, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did lose a fumble. I don't love that. But, man, Philly, they're 8-0 for the first time ever in franchise history. The next game for them is on Monday night, so they've got a lot of time to prepare for that game, time to rest, recover, prepare. I don't know that the Eagles are going to go undefeated. But, man, I think there is a chance this team goes undefeated or is like a one-loss football team because they've got a lot of easy games ahead. Listen to their schedule. They play Washington, Indy, Green Bay, Chicago, New Orleans. I mean, those are a lot of winnable games. And their tough games are like, you know, they play Tennessee, who runs the ball really well, Dallas could beat them. They still have to play the Giants twice this year. Maybe the Giants get them. But there's really only a handful of games that I think Philly's even at risk of losing. And so I think we're looking at most, a 2 or 3 loss Philadelphia Eagles team when the year is over. And I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated, but there is a small chance that if they stay healthy, I'll say this, man, every game on their schedule is very winnable. They're not playing Buffalo. They're not playing Kansas City. There is no scary dominant force they're playing the rest of the year. Dallas is going to be tough. Tennessee's tough. The Giants twice. That's tough to do. But a lot of their games up ahead the rest of the year for Philly are teams that have losing records and aren't that great. And I'm like, man, I don't think people realize how good this year really could be for Philly. I think, 8-0, congrats to them. There's a really good shot that the Super Bowl is going to be Philly against Buffalo. And I mean, Buffalo, we saw at the trade deadline, reinforced their team, got a lot of depth, and even added a weapon, Naheem Hines. So did Philly. Philly got better too. So I don't know, man. I see a really dangerous, really, really good Philadelphia Eagles team here. And I so very much love watching Jalen Hurts, their quarterback, do well. I always believed in Jalen Hurts, man. He makes progress every year I watch him, from Alabama, a couple years there, Oklahoma, to year 1 as a rookie in Philadelphia, to now. He's gotten better every year I've watched Jalen Hurts develop and make progress. He's a great leader. He works too hard to fail, in my opinion. I always believed in the guy. And I encourage you, if you're ever bored and want to really, I talk about all this stuff, and I don't very often, I think, toot my own horn when I'm right about stuff. Go listen to the stuff I said about him around the time of the 2020 NFL draft. I even had Brett Coleman on. We talked about that. I got called crazy, but I always believed in Jalen Hurts. And so to see him win now and do so well is just really exciting and really cool. And very, I always thought the guy had it in him, and it's cool to see him do well. There's also great coaching in Philadelphia, which has to be given credit for. They built an offense around Jalen Hurts' skill set. They allow him to run. They allow him to extend plays. They run RPOs. They run the ball a lot. They've built a system around him, and that's what great coaches do. You mold your system to your players. I think there's other coaches around the NFL that could probably, learn from that a little bit. And I'm so happy to see Jalen Hurts do well. But a big part of that is the coaching staff in Philly and their willingness to invest in him and believe in him, and therefore build a system that revolves around his skill set as a quarterback. I'm looking now. There's a spider in my windshield, it just hung down. I'm like, what is that? And then I saw it climb back up. So that's terrifying. I'm in the truck with a spider. We're going to have to figure that out at some point. I don't know when. Certainly not this very moment, because it's raining and I'm recording a podcast. But he's under my flap. The passenger thing you put down to block the sun. He's right under there, and I can see him, and I don't like that. Let's move on. Last week, during NFL Week 8, Titans rookie quarterback Malik Willis made his first ever NFL start against Houston, actually, another Houston game. The Titans beat Houston 17-10 in this game, but I thought things were pretty clear that, number one, Malik Willis has a long way to go before he's ready to be an NFL starter, but also Tennessee really doesn't trust Malik Willis throwing the football. And, against Houston, he was 6 for 10 passing. He threw 10 passes. I mean, they called a couple more passing plays than that. He ran around, but he was 6 for 10 passing for 55 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. And his interception was really bad. It was a ball laid over the middle, way behind his receiver on a dig route. It actually gave Houston the ball on the 11-yard line and handed them 3 points. So Malik Willis, I thought was not a great performance from him. He later missed a wide open receiver on a corner route that should have been a touchdown. It was a bad throw. He missed the throw. The drive worked out because later that same drive, Derrick Henry ran for a touchdown, so it didn't cost them too much. But I walked away thinking Malik Willis didn't look very good. And again, it's just clear Tennessee didn't trust him to throw the ball. Now, part of that, though, they ran the ball 45 times. It's not only because they don't trust Malik Willis, though. It's also because they're playing against Houston, who has the worst run defense in the entire NFL. And it makes sense that you got a backup quarterback. You've got Derrick Henry running the football. Ryan Tannehill, their starting quarterback, was sick. You're playing the worst defense in football. It makes sense that they heavily leaned on him, but I don't think it was only because they've got a great running game against a bad defense. I think it's also partially because I don't think they trust Malik Willis that much. And, I mean, it was crazy, by the way. Given the situation, they got a backup quarterback. They got Derrick Henry. Houston knew that Tennessee was going to run the football, and they just couldn't stop them. Like, they knew they were going to get pounded a ton by Derrick Henry. And despite openly, like, no secret that Tennessee's going to try to run the football, it didn't matter. They couldn't do anything to stop him. And it was pretty wild. So, like, Derrick Henry ran the ball 32 times for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was unreal. And Tennessee literally ran for a first down on 3rd and 9. 3rd and 9. They were, I can't think of very many times where you run the ball on 3rd and 9 and actually run for a first down. And that wasn't Derrick Henry, by the way. That was their backup running back. It was crazy. Tennessee had a 9-play, 65-yard touchdown drive, and Tennessee didn't even throw the ball one time. They later had a 12-play field goal drive, threw one pass the entire drive. Derrick Henry dominated. But we saw Malik Willis play quarterback for the first time. He wasn't great. They didn't take a lot of chances with him. They didn't trust him. And I walked away thinking, Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback in Tennessee, and he's still going to be the quarterback in Tennessee even next year. Not going to lie to you guys, this spider is kind of... I almost want to include part of the podcast, like a subtext, actually. Like, I'll just leave the camera rolling. Maybe I'll record with my phone, like handheld, and I'm going to go try to kill that spider because I know I have to drive home later. Or I don't have a home, but I have to drive somewhere later. And that spider, I don't want him to bother me while I'm driving, so I got to kill him before I leave the parking lot. And I know he's right there. It's a terrifying thought, you guys. Do you want to be included in that adventure? I'm not sure, but I got to kill that guy. I know exactly where he is. He's hiding, but he can hear me, and I hate that more than you know. The fact that there's this looming threat of a spider just right there. Don't like that at all. The Dolphins beat Detroit 31-27 last week during NFL Week 8. I expected this, but let's just make sure it was an offensive explosion for Miami, as I thought. Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback, was 29 for 36 passing. He had 382 yards, 3 touchdown passes. The Detroit Lions have one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL, and it was just really fun to watch Miami dominate throwing the football. Tyreek Hill went off. He had 12 catches for 188 yards. Jalen Waddle had 8 catches for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Lions are now 1-6, and I keep seeing people talking about how are they going to draft C.J. Stroud from Ohio State? I really don't think Jared Goff is the problem in Detroit. Their defense is so bad, and I don't love how much they're paying Jared Goff, I guess, but the Lions actually led 21-7 at one point. They led at halftime 27-17. They only got the ball 3 times in the second half, 0 points. But man, the defense in Detroit is the problem. No matter how many points Detroit scores, their defense can't stop anyone. So I just really hesitate to blame Jared Goff when that defense is as bad as it is. It's worth noting 2 things. Miami's 5-3 right now. They are 5-0. When Tua Tagovailoa, their starting quarterback, plays the entire game. Remember, they lost a game that he started against Cincinnati when he got hurt halfway through the game. It's pretty clear Miami is legit a way better football team when Tua is healthy and plays. Tyreek Hill, their receiver, leads the league in both yards and catches. In 8 games, Tyreek Hill has 67 catches for 961 yards. Tyreek Hill is on pace for over 2,000 yards receiving. And I saw a graphic on CBS Sports. I took a screenshot. It's pretty crazy. Tyreek Hill has more receiving yards by himself than all of the receivers in Atlanta, New York, Houston, Baltimore, Chicago, and Tennessee. These are the 6 teams. Worth noting, the Bears, the Ravens, the Giants, and Atlanta are all top 5 in rushing. So they're getting yards. But, Atlanta... Tyreek Hill, by himself, 961 yards receiving. Atlanta, all of their receivers combined have 943. All of the receivers combined by the Giants have 875 yards. Miami, all combined, 853 yards. Baltimore, 790. Chicago, 784. And Tennessee, 658. Tyreek Hill is producing at an insanely high level. And I just walk away going, I cannot believe what he's doing. I would love to see the guy finish the year with over 2,000 yards receiving. That would be completely bonkers. Remember when he went to Miami, people said, his numbers are going to die because he doesn't have a quarterback. And the reality is Tyreek Hill would probably have over 1,000 yards receiving if Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback, hadn't gotten hurt and missed time and wasn't throwing to him every game so far this year. So Tyreek Hill is just on another level this year. And part of it is because he's the main focal point of that offense in Miami, whereas in Kansas City, I don't think he got quite as many targets, but it's terrifying. And I still, to this day, no one can stop Miami. That was a question going into the year is, hey, what are people going to do to slow down or stop that dynamic duo of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill? And we still don't have an answer. No one apparently can figure out what to do to stop them. And I think that's pretty incredible. Now, Monday Night Football was kind of a bust. Cleveland dominated Cincinnati 32-13. The Browns led 25-0 at the start of the fourth quarter. It just wasn't a very competitive, fun game on Monday night. Nick Chubb, their running back, ran for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Amari Cooper had 5 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown. Cleveland, man, I walked away thinking this team has a lot of talent. And when they play their best, they can hang with anybody in the league. I mean, they could hang with a Buffalo or a Kansas City when their players play at their best. And I'm really interested to see. Deshaun Watson gets a lot of hate, and I think deservedly so. But he also undeniably is a really good quarterback, like talent-wise. And I think it's possible. Let me say it this way. I'm just really curious what they look like with Deshaun Watson, because this team is capable. Like, they have talent, and you put a really good quarterback on a talented team, that's not a terrible formula. So we'll see what happens with Cleveland down the stretch. I'm really curious with them. Cincinnati struggled, man. Joe Burrow, weird fact, is 0-4 against the Cleveland Browns. He's never won the battle for Ohio, which I kind of find shocking. Now the Bengals have to figure out how to win without Jamar Chase for the next month. He's out injured with a hip injury. And I think, the Rams are struggling this year. They went to the Super Bowl. They won. And Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl too, and they're struggling as well. I think it's very possible when it's all said and done, and we look back on Joe Burrow's career, I think we're going to view 2022 as kind of a lost year, where we're like, I went to the Super Bowl the year before, had decent numbers, but wasn't his best year, and I think it's going to be kind of forgotten as a small little bullet point in what's going to be a really great career for Joe Burrow. But it's not been a great year for them, and I'm really curious if they're going to keep their head coach, Zach Taylor, who spells his name great, by the way, Z-A-C, that's how I spell my name as well. I don't know that Zach Taylor is going to be the coach for much longer in Cincinnati. Now, there was a big game last week during NFL Week 8. It was the Arizona Cardinals at Minnesota. Minnesota won 34-26, and I got a couple of key takeaways here. Number one, the Vikings are 6-1, and clearly their new head coach, Kevin O'Connell, was a great hire. He's 6-1, way ahead in the division of the other teams. It's pretty cool what's going on there. Minnesota first in the NFC North. Green Bay's down. Chicago's trying. Detroit is terrible. And Minnesota just traded for tight end TJ Hawkinson, which is that's a crazy trade. I mean, we'll talk about it more when I get to the trade deadline section of the show, but Minnesota is legit. And honestly, I think they probably waited too long to replace their former head coach, Mike Zimmer. I'm glad it all worked out because clearly Kevin O'Connell is the right guy, but it was really obvious for like a while that Mike Zimmer wasn't the right coach, and they waited and kind of drug their feet, and I think wasted a year or two of Kirk Cousins' career and maybe the early years of Justin Jefferson, maybe the prime years of Adam Thielen. I mean, I'm really sad to say that we're finally seeing these guys get good offensive coaching, and it just felt like it took too long in Minnesota. Now, the big storyline, again, as Arizona loses on the road to Minnesota, the big storyline is that once again, the Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray could not make it happen in a big moment. This was a 2-point game in the fourth quarter. Kirk Cousins fumbled that handed Arizona a field goal, which made it 28-26. 2-point game in the fourth quarter, but down the stretch, Kyler Murray could not deliver. Now, first, there's one thing that happened that was not Kyler Murray's fault. Arizona muffed a punt deep in their own territory. That gave Minnesota a touchdown and gave them a 34-26 lead. but it was still an 8-point game. It was still a one-score game within reach, and Kyler had 2 interceptions in the second half. One was in the third quarter on a badly underthrown deep ball to Robbie Anderson. Interception number 2 came in the fourth quarter when Arizona was down 8 points. He threw a ball over the middle. He was not on the same page as Zach Ertz, as tight end. It was a ball that probably should have been a completion and wasn't, because he was open and they just weren't on the same page. And then later on a 4th and 4 with 2:45 left, he couldn't get it done. And believe it or not, Kyler Murray got the ball again with 1st and 10 with 1:52 left, and again had another chance to win the game and couldn't. Like chance after chance. Failure on 4th and 4, an interception, a drive at the end he couldn't put together. This was a winnable game for Arizona, and I don't really care if you agree or not, because I'm trying to advocate in favor of the Arizona Cardinals fans. He couldn't get it done. Kyler's exciting. It's fun to watch. He had 3 touchdowns, had 300 yards, but regularly, Kyler Murray just isn't good enough in big moments. And I feel bad for Cardinals fans because they gave him $230 million, a massive contract, and Kyler is overpaid and underdelivers. And I'm not hating on Kyler Murray. I'm saying what's obvious, which is that, man, like this team is hamstrung now by a quarterback who isn't worth the money they paid him. And I would be very, very frustrated if I was an Arizona Cardinals fan. Arizona, they're 3-5. Kyler's got this big long-term contract. You can't get rid of him. So really the only thing that's going to work in Arizona is you're going to have to bring in a new head coach. Although maybe, here's a crazy thought, maybe you trade Kyler Murray. He could go to Houston or something. I could see Kyler Murray getting traded to Houston. I talked earlier about if Houston decides to trade away or move on from Davis Mills, their current quarterback, they'd better get someone who can move around and extend plays. That Kyler Murray fits the bill there. Maybe you trade Kyler Murray to Houston or New Orleans, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the only way, though, that you're going to make progress and get better as a football team at this point, because you're not going to get rid of Kyler. You gave him a contract for a reason. You're going to have to go get a new head coach in Arizona. And I hope that making a change there at head coach is going to turn things around for the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, if they lose this weekend to Seattle, Arizona will be 3-6, and I think there's a good chance that Cliff Kingsbury doesn't make it through after that. All right, let's stay in the Vikings division and talk about the NFC North a little more, at least an NFC North team. On Sunday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills beat Green Bay 27-17. I'm not going to lie, this game, 27-17, Buffalo against Green Bay, closer final score than I expected. I went, oh, wow. Unbelievable. Hey, give me 1 second. I got to blow my nose. So again, the game was closer than I thought. Buffalo beat Green Bay 27-17. And in my opinion, the Bills didn't do a good enough job finishing this game. They led 24-7 at halftime. And Josh Allen had 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. Green Bay just kind of hung around. And I don't think it's a knock against Buffalo. It's just, that's what happened. I'm surprised that this game was as close as it was. A 10-point game was not what I expected from this game. I did expect Buffalo to win. Still, it was fun to watch Josh Allen. It felt kind of like a passing of the torch moment. Mahomes and Josh Allen replacing Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers at the top. The end of one era, beginning of a new one. Green Bay is now 3-5. And most of what's going on is just their receiving core is a problem. And by the way, this is the most games they've ever lost under Matt LaFleur as a head coach. They went 13-3, 13-3, 13-4. 3-5 means they can't go 13-4. So I really just don't understand why Aaron Rodgers decided to stay in Green Bay. He could have left. He signed another contract extension. Then at the trade deadline, we saw Green Bay didn't make any moves to go get a receiver. Their number one problem. They didn't draft a receiver until Christian Watson in the second round. They didn't make a trade at the trade deadline. Receiver is by far, and I mean by far, the biggest problem in Green Bay. They don't have people who can get open and win one-on-one matchups. And Chase Claypool apparently was available. Chicago went and got him with a second-round pick. You're telling me Green Bay wouldn't just refuse to trade a second-round pick to get Chase Claypool? It's very frustrating. They not only didn't get a receiver, they also let their division rival Chicago go get one. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers' ownership of Green Bay is going to continue this year because Green Bay is so bad. And not making a move, it almost felt like Green Bay was pushing Aaron Rodgers out. As I jokingly, by the way, refer to Aaron Rodgers as a part-time owner of the Chicago Bears. Did I say Cleveland Browns, by the way? I hope I didn't say Cleveland Browns. I don't know if I did or not. I don't have a producer on the show. It's just me. So if I ever misspeak, it's all on me to figure out if I said the wrong thing or not. We all have slips and say the wrong thing. But seriously, not making a move at the trade deadline was crazy for Green Bay. I don't know what they're doing there. It's almost like Green Bay wants him to retire, which is just weird to me. I don't know why they refuse to go get him a top-tier receiver and help him win. I just don't understand the philosophy and don't understand what's going on in Green Bay. I haven't watched it yet, but I know that a good friend of mine, Marcus Whitman, posted a rant about it. He's a Packer fan. I don't think he likes Brian Gutekunst, the GM in Green Bay. Deservedly so. Haven't watched the rant yet. I will probably soon. I got a long drive ahead of me, so I encourage you, if you want good entertainment. I can only imagine how entertaining that was from Marcus Whitman, also known as that franchise guy, talking about the Packers' lack of a move at the trade deadline. Now, during NFL Week 8, the Patriots beat the Jets 22-17, and I was disappointed watching this game because the way the Jets lost was disappointing. It's not the fact that they lost, it's why they lost and how they lost. The Jets lost a game by 5 points where their quarterback, Zach Wilson, threw 3 interceptions. And those interceptions led to 2 field goals by New England. That's a 6-point difference. So Zach Wilson cost his team the game with bad interceptions. And they weren't like fluky, unlucky plays, like the ball get tipped in the air and picked off a receiver's hands. Like, no, they were bad interceptions and bad decisions and throws that should not have been made. It was Zach Wilson being undisciplined, and that was disappointing. That was frustrating because I like Zach. I want him to succeed. I want him to do well. I root for him. Interception number 1 was on a 3rd and 2 before halftime. He threw the ball off his back foot, was laid over the middle, didn't step into a throw. Ball sails high, gets picked off. Not great, but not the worst one of the bunch. Interception number 2 was terrible. He's extending a play and made a dumb decision. He forced a throw along the sideline, threw the ball right to a defender. Nothing was open. I don't know what he's doing. It was frustrating. It's 1st and 10. Live to see another play. Throw the ball out of bounds. What are you doing? And then interception number 3 was by far the worst one because on 2nd and 7, the play before, he threw the ball away when nothing was open. So Zach Wilson has the capacity to be disciplined and throw the ball away. So the next play, 3rd and 7, again, nothing's open, and he forces a throw into coverage, and it gets picked off. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you throwing the ball into traffic? What's happening here? And I just hope this game, you lose a very winnable game against New England. I hope this game is a wake-up call for Zach Wilson, and it leads to him making changes in his game and being more disciplined in the future, because the final score was 22-17, but the game really was 22-10. The Jets got a touchdown in garbage time after the 2-minute warning. So I just like, the Jets missed so many opportunities here, and it's not the Jets. Zach Wilson was undisciplined, and he's got a lot of talent. We'll talk about that in a second. Frustrating to watch him play badly when he's better than that, I believe. I'm not going to lie, neither quarterback was very impressive in this football game. I would even say the Patriots were kind of lucky here. Mac Jones, the Patriots quarterback, only had 1 interception on the day. He should have had 3. Mac Jones threw a really bad pick 6 before halftime. That got called back because of roughing the passer. Still a bad decision and a bad throw. Shouldn't have been made. Later in the 4th quarter, he had an interception dropped. Both were terrible decisions. It's not like Mac Jones played a great game either. I don't want to it's like, neither was very good. And honestly, I would rather have Zach Wilson than Mac Jones. It's close, and I do worry about Zach Wilson's maturity, which is a terrifying problem because it's certainly not a problem for Mac Jones. The dude has to learn discipline. But Zach Wilson's ability to run around and extend plays and escape sacks, that should not be overlooked. That's a big deal. Zach Wilson does stuff with his legs that a lot of quarterbacks simply just cannot do. He's very, very slippery. Like you can't sack him. You can't take him to the ground. And it's part of why I believe the Jets should give Zach Wilson patience. I've got concerns. He's not played great. And really that game against New England was infuriating. Like, what are you doing? That's not open. That's a throw into traffic that's so obviously should not be made, and he did it anyway. Drives me nuts. But Zach's ability to run around and extend plays, I would even argue, is a little bit special. And you're not going to find a lot of guys that can do that just running around college campuses. So I think the Jets have to continue to be patient with Zach Wilson, but my goodness, man, what a frustrating, infuriating turn of events in New England. By the way, I said this was a long episode. I wrote down, because I don't want to lose track, like if my papers got all shuffled and I wrote all this stuff, I have 59 front and back pages of notes for this episode. So by far, this is the biggest and longest episode I'll ever do. We've got a lot ahead. Let's talk about Dallas. Last weekend, the Dallas Cowboys beat the Chicago Bears 49-29. I want to start by giving the Cowboys offense a shout out. Their quarterback, Dak Prescott, looked really good. Dallas started the game with 4 straight touchdown drives, and that gave them a 28-7 lead right off the bat. So Chicago did fight back. They made it 28-23 briefly in the third quarter. Dallas had control of this game, and their offense was just unstoppable on Sunday. The Cowboys' backup running back, Tony Pollard, had a huge day because their starter, Ezekiel Elliott, did not play. That allowed Tony Pollard to get an opportunity, and he shined when he got an opportunity. He looked really good. He had 14 carries for 131 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, what's interesting, though, to me in this game, look, Dallas, their offense played really well. But to me, what I was excited about and what I enjoyed watching in this game was the Bears offense and their young quarterback, Justin Fields. Chicago lost 49-29. So let's be clear, this loss is not on Justin Fields, their young quarterback. You can't blame him here because Chicago's defense is to blame, first of all. I mean, they gave up 42 points and 6 touchdowns. That's a problem. On top of that, David Montgomery, the Bears running back, fumbled. That gave Dallas another touchdown. So none of that is Justin Fields' fault. In fact, he played very well. I was worried that he was going to get killed by the Cowboys' pass rush in this game, and no. He played great, man. He was 17 for 23 passing for 151 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Justin Fields also ran for 60 yards and another touchdown. I thought he had kind of a break before halftime where he threw an interception, and that got called back because of a roughing the passer call, which is a little bit nonsense. But overall, I thought it was a pretty solid day for the Bears offense. And I really just have enjoyed watching this young offense with a lot of young players make progress. You know, N'Keal Harry caught a touchdown pass. He's a former first-round pick out of New England. They traded for him. I would love to see N'Keal Harry become a good weapon for Chicago. I don't know that he will, but keep your eye on that storyline. Chicago's offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, actually experimented a little bit in this game. Twice they ran a direct snap to their running back, David Montgomery. He caught the snap, and then actually Justin Fields was used as the running back. It was kind of a wildcat set. It failed once on a 3rd and 3, and I was like, you got a little too cute there. But they used it again and converted a big 4th down, and I was like, I guess I got an open mind. This is kind of a cool wrinkle because I love seeing coaches get creative and experimental and finding ways to put their really good players in a position to be successful and get the ball in open space and yada, yada. I'm also really excited to see how, let's just say it now, how Luke Getsy uses the new receiver in Chicago, Chase Claypool, because the dude can run the ball and catch passes. And so I'm excited to see what kind of play designs Luke Getsy comes up with and formations he creates to get the most out of Chase Claypool. I thought overall, though, Week 8 was another decent week of progress for the Bears offense. They had 29 points, and it was not the Bears quarterback, Justin Fields' fault that they lost. The defense gave up 6 touchdowns, 42 points. Their running back fumbled, but Justin Fields, this year is all about Justin Fields making progress. I'd love to see them win games in Chicago, but actually, to be honest, every time Chicago loses a game, it helps them in the draft. So, I don't know. I don't need them to win. I just want Chicago to play good on offense, and I want Justin Fields to get better and better and, create better and better habits. Also, Week 8, I watched Seattle beat the Giants 27-13. In this Giants-Seattle game, two people had a really bad day. Tyler Lockett and Richie James. Tyler Lockett bounced back and got redemption. Richie James did not. First, let's talk about Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, Seattle receiver, fumbled on his own 2-yard line. That gave the Giants first and goal, basically handed them an easy touchdown on the 2-yard line. That's not great. And then later on a 3rd and 3, Geno Smith, the Seahawks quarterback, throws a beautiful throw down the right sideline. Perfect throw, should have been a touchdown, right in stride. And Tyler Lockett dropped it. And I was like, what? That is shocking. So we'll get to that. We'll continue that storyline in a second, but we got to talk about first the Giants punt returner, Richie James. He really struggled. Richie James for the Giants also really struggled. Here's what he did. Early in the game, he fumbled on a punt return. That gave Seattle the ball on the 19-yard line, led to a field goal. And then later, on another punt, he fumbled again, and that led to a Seattle touchdown. So Richie James by himself handed Seattle 10 points and a touchdown and a field goal. Richie James did not make any kind of redemption move or any kind of way to bounce back, but Tyler Lockett did. Tyler Lockett, it was a tie game, 13-13, with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Geno threw a very similar, beautiful deep ball. Again, down the right sideline, beautiful throw. Again, I thought, is this a replay? Oh, no, it's the same play. This time, Tyler Lockett caught it, and that gave Seattle a 20-13 lead. So he got kind of some redemption. I was happy to see that, but Richie James cost New York, the Giants, 10 points, and they lost by more than that, but that's still a big problem. Now, the game itself was kind of a slow burn. It was 0-0 for a long time, even into the end of the first quarter. A lot of really great defensive plays were made. And I actually like watching high-level defensive football. What I don't like is when offenses are bad, and that's why defenses are making plays. But I like when offenses are doing well, and defenses are just elevating and knocking passes down or making a little play here and there. And I thought for the whole first quarter of this game, if you're ever bored and want to watch something, go watch. And you're like, hey, I want to watch good defense. Go find a way to watch the Giants-Seahawks Week 8 game from 2022. The first quarter of this game, just a lot of great defensive football was being played, and balls were being knocked down, and great tackles were happening, and it was, offenses heated up in this game as time went on, and it certainly helped that the Giants were handed the ball first and goal on the 2-yard line. But I thought the first part of this game was really cool. Now, as the game went on, Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith got better and better. I mean, he ended the game with a perfect drive in the fourth quarter where Geno was 5 for 5 with 75 yards passing and a touchdown. I think Geno Smith is awesome, man. It's such a cool story of him bouncing back. He was drafted with the hopes of becoming the Jets franchise quarterback. He failed, and Geno Smith became a backup for a while, played in New York, played in San Diego, LA with the Chargers, behind Phillip Rivers. He went to Seattle. Now at 32 years old, Geno Smith is having his Kurt Warner moment in Seattle. And I love to see that. I would imagine that Geno Smith is going to get a solid contract this offseason. It's very interesting because he's 32 years old. He's not exactly early on in his career. So I don't know what Seattle's going to do here contract-wise. How much money is an appropriate amount to offer Geno Smith because he is older, and he kind of came out of nowhere, but he's really good. I mean, I watch Geno Smith every week, and I'm like, man, this guy can play. He's doing awesome stuff. And I hope he stays in Seattle, and I hope he gets a pretty decent contract. I also hope that getting a big contract doesn't change Geno Smith, because I know sometimes money can change people and they get kind of a big head and a big approach. And I don't think it's going to happen to Geno, but I keep your eye on that. I think money did change Russell Wilson a little bit. And I also legitimately wonder, how much will Seattle pay Geno Smith? We also know quarterbacks play longer than they ever have before. I mean, quarterbacks' careers are extended more than before, and we'll just see. I'm really curious how long Geno is going to play left in his career, and how much money does Seattle give him after this season. Now, the other guy I'm happy for in Seattle is their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. He was hired in 2021, and he got a lot of heat when Russell Wilson didn't look amazing last year. I mean, I would imagine the let Russ cook. I would imagine that those chants were tough for Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, and he was getting kind of destroyed in the media. So now, a year later, Russ is really struggling in Denver, and Shane Waldron looks like a good coach coaching Geno Smith. So I'm happy for the guy. I remember when Shane Waldron was getting a lot of hate during his time early on with Russell Wilson. And I'm really happy to see Seattle win, and I'm happy to see Geno and Shane Waldron succeed together. Washington won their third game in a row this last week. Washington beat Indy 17-16. Colts second-year quarterback Sam Ehlinger made his first ever NFL start, and surprisingly, I don't know if surprisingly is the right word, but certainly interestingly, Sam Ehlinger was not terrible as the quarterback of the Colts. He was 17 for 23 passing for 201 yards, had no touchdowns and no interceptions. He did have a fumble. He fumbled on the 17-yard line going in. So at minimum, Sam Ehlinger cost his team an opportunity to potentially kick a field goal. Indy lost by 1 point. That field goal opportunity matters. I mean, that's a big difference in the game. But I would argue that Sam Ehlinger played better than we've seen Matt Ryan play so far this year. He threw a really nice deep ball to Antonio Pierce. He ran the offense really well. Did nothing reckless or stupid. I walked away really curious about Sam Ehlinger because he clearly isn't horrible. And I wonder how well Sam Ehlinger is going to play the rest of the year, because can he convince Indy to not draft a quarterback? That's the question. Can he play well enough to make Indy say, this is our guy for next year? Similar to what I would kind of imagine Jalen Hurts did his rookie year in Philly. So I don't know. Keep your eye on the Colts and Sam Ehlinger. They play the Patriots next week, so he's going to get tested by a crafty head coach, Bill Belichick. Sam Ehlinger will. Interesting stuff happening there. Now we got to talk about Washington quarterback Taylor Heinicke. I'm going to say Heinicke. People say Heinicke. I've said Heinicke the entire time, but Heinicke appears to be the general consensus on how to say Taylor Heinicke's last name, so we'll say Heinicke. I absolutely love seeing this guy do well. He's awesome. It was kind of fitting for me that against Carson Wentz's former team, Taylor Heinicke was the hero. Like, leadership matters, and every time I watch Taylor Heinicke, he seems to rally his team and get the most out of the people around him. And I absolutely love that. It's clear to me, personally, my opinion is that Taylor Heinicke is an upgrade over Carson Wentz. He's definitely a better leader. He's won 2 games in a row. The dude is clutch, man. People got to realize how you handle big moments is really important. And Taylor Heinicke, Indy led 16-7 with 10 minutes left, and Indy lost because Taylor Heinicke made plays at the end of this game. Made multiple plays on fourth down. He extends plays. Made some really good throws on fourth down. He was helped by a great Terry McLaurin catch. But for right now, in my opinion, Taylor Heinicke is the best option for Washington at quarterback. He's better than Carson Wentz. I think I would rather have Taylor Heinicke than drafting the Kentucky quarterback, Will Levis. So Taylor Heinicke's not a sexy name. He's not exciting. He's not amazing. But I think he's better than a lot of people. Also, an underrated storyline about Taylor Heinicke. Look, great leader, rallies his troops, makes good decisions. He can extend plays, which he's better than Carson Wentz at doing that. He's also cheap. I don't know why people are so fired up about paying quarterbacks $350 million. I'm like, man, if I can find a cheap quarterback that does well and build a good team around him, especially one that is a great leader and does all the right stuff and you feel good about, that matters. I mean, it's a huge advantage if you can pay your quarterback a smaller amount of money and build a great team and recruit great players around him. Like, the marginal difference you get compared to the amount of money you have to spend isn't worth it for most quarterbacks. Pay Patrick Mahomes, you pay Josh Allen. But Taylor Heinicke at $6 million a year, or Dak Prescott at 42, is Dak Prescott really that much money more valuable than Taylor Heinicke? I don't think so. Do you get my point? Like, there's a point where paying a quarterback a massive amount of money is a limited return. And I would love to see a new era where teams start to realize, hey, Davis Mills, Taylor Heineke, PJ Walker, these guys who are not Geno Smith, guys who are very solid quarterbacks and professionals and do well and do their job at a pretty high level. You can get away with paying them less money and then building an incredible team around them. And that's how teams win Super Bowls. I mean, how many times have we seen a team get to or win a Super Bowl with a quarterback on a rookie contract because they can just absolutely load their roster with talent? What's happening right now in Philadelphia? It goes on and on. I mean, teams, when you pay your quarterback a small amount of money, you can really invest in the players around your quarterback. And I'd love to see Washington learn a little bit about that and maybe consider sticking with Taylor Heineke for a little bit longer until a truly elite, incredible option. I'm not saying pass on the next Josh Allen or the next Bryce Young is a great example. I think Bryce Young is about to destroy the NFL and be an incredible quarterback. But Will Levis is not an elite, physical, gifted quarterback. So unless you're getting a guy you think is like a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes level, why would you move on from Taylor Heineke? It's my official stance on that. Okay, I got to tell you about the tragedy that happened this past weekend in Carolina. The game actually might have been in, I'll put the film on screen. You can decide. I think the game, I can't remember. The game might have been actually in Atlanta, but between Carolina and Atlanta, this football game had a tragedy happen. Panthers quarterback P.J. Walker made a crazy play, threw a gorgeous 62-yard bomb for a touchdown to DJ Moore. That tied the game 34-34, should have given Carolina the lead in this football game. And I saw a comment the other day. I was watching some highlight, and someone's like, anytime you watch a highlight and a highlight video and they show an extra point, something bad's about to happen. This is one of those moments where I would imagine if you watched the highlight video, you saw, something bad's about to happen because the extra point got missed. After DJ Moore caught a crazy long touchdown, 62 yards, should have been the game-winning touchdown. He took his helmet off while celebrating. I don't know why this matters. I don't know why, by the way, it's a penalty to take your helmet off after a game-winning touchdown. Like, it's entertainment. I don't know why you can't celebrate really hard in the NFL. It's not college football. Can we just allow celebrating? Like, and what celebrations are allowed but aren't allowed? You can't take your helmet off, but you can play fake bowling or take pictures or pump the chest of the ball. Like, I don't know why certain penalties or certain celebrations are allowed and certain ones aren't. But anyway, DJ Moore got an unsportsmanlike penalty. That penalty made the extra point super long. In fact, it was a 48-yard extra point that Carolina's kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, missed. So instead of winning the game, we go to overtime, 34-34. In overtime, Marcus Mariota, Atlanta's quarterback, throws an interception, and Eddie Pinheiro got another opportunity to kick a game-winning kick for Carolina, and he missed again. He missed a game-winning 33-yard field goal. So ultimately, Atlanta was the one that kicked and won the game 37-34. It was a heartbreaking loss for Carolina because they almost stole a win from Atlanta. And what's so sad here, it's like doing this amazing trick but not sticking the landing. Like you do this crazy tray flip onto a rail on a skateboard, and you're like, how did he land that? And then you do another thing and you don't land the trick on the ground. And you're like, but it was so incredible till the end. I really can't emphasize how good the throw P.J. Walker made was to essentially what should have been the game-winning touchdown. A 62-yard bomb to DJ Moore for a touchdown. Rolling left, pulls up, throws into the end zone. P.J. Walker might have thrown the best game-winning touchdown ever, and instead he lost. And it's sad. It's like a piece of history that's going to be forgotten and become a footnote because this throw is incredible. I'm going to put it on screen if you're watching in YouTube. It's an incredible throw by P.J. Walker. And instead, no one's going to remember it because they lost. And instead of becoming the story of the best game-winning throw ever, it's going to be a great throw that is forgotten because the stupid kicker missed a 48-yard extra point and a 33-yard field goal. Here's the question I asked myself after NFL Week 8. I said, how is Christian McCaffrey doing with the 49ers? They traded for him. Game number 1, he had like 3 days to practice or some small limited amount. It's actually it was like a day or something, right? So how did his second game go with the 49ers? The answer is that Christian McCaffrey's doing pretty dang well with the 49ers. Going into week 8, he actually had a full week to prepare and played against the Rams. The 49ers won 31-14. They beat the Rams. And Christian McCaffrey had a historic day. 3 total touchdowns. He ran for 1. He caught 1. Christian McCaffrey even threw a touchdown pass against the LA Rams last week. Here is Christian McCaffrey's stat line against the Rams. He ran for 18 times. McCaffrey ran 18 times for 94 yards and a touchdown. He caught 8 passes for 55 yards and another touchdown. And he threw a 34-yard touchdown. So already in game 2, Kyle Shanahan is doing stuff. Kyle Shanahan, the head coach in San Francisco, the offensive mastermind, is doing stuff with Christian McCaffrey that's super creative and super fun. And I feel validated, man. I knew that Kyle Shanahan's system was going to be really fun when you added Christian McCaffrey. But here's a scary thought. Deebo Samuel didn't even play. Deebo Samuel is their running back receiver hybrid thing in San Francisco. Very similar skill set to Christian McCaffrey. Apparently Christian McCaffrey can throw, by the way, too. Didn't know that. McCaffrey balled out. The 49ers beat LA 31-14. He had 3 touchdowns, and Deebo Samuel didn't even play. What's going to happen when Deebo Samuel's on the field? Can you imagine a play where they line up Jimmy Garoppolo in the shotgun, McCaffrey on his left, Deebo Samuel on his right, defenses quivering in their boots, peeing their pants because they're terrified? I can't wait. It's so awesome. Like, oh, man. So how is Christian McCaffrey doing in San Francisco, you ask? Outstanding. 3 touchdowns in every way you can possibly score a touchdown. And it was cool to see. Really, really a great week last week for Christian McCaffrey. And you got a bye week coming up soon, so they're going to have time to really learn the system and build even more around Christian McCaffrey. Okay, let's talk about the NFL trade deadline. A lot of big NFL moves happened this week. It was like an insane week. I was so overwhelmed. Like, trying to take notes and keep up, it's like I don't even know what to do here. And I really try to take my time and think things through. I don't make very much reaction content. In fact, the times I've made content where I react to stuff, people get mad at me. And so, like, oh, you didn't even know. I'm like, well, yeah, apparently you can't react to anything. So I take my time. I've had a couple days now to think about it. Here are the biggest move that stands out to me, really, from the NFL trade deadline is this. Tight end TJ Hawkinson was traded from Detroit to Minnesota. Minnesota got TJ Hawkinson and a 2023 4th-round pick. Also, they got a conditional 2024 4th-round pick. That becomes a 5th-round pick if the Vikings win a playoff game. Detroit got a 2023 2nd-round pick and a 2024 3rd-round pick. It's a wild trade because it's 2 division rivals, Minnesota and Detroit, trading with each other, which almost never happens. Well, the Vikings are 6-1, and the Lions are helping Minnesota by giving them one of the best tight ends in football. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if maybe Detroit's like, hey, let's combine our power so we can take down the Green Bay Packers. I don't know what's going on. But remember, a couple weeks ago against Seattle, TJ Hawkinson, with a bunch of injuries in their receiving core, carried Detroit's offense with 8 catches for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's still on a rookie contract, by the way. It's not like Detroit was getting rid of him because they couldn't pay him or didn't want to give him a new contract. Like, no, he's under contract next year as well. So just a weird one. I don't really get it. Like, from the Lions standpoint, I feel bad for Lions fans, actually, because the trade made very little sense for Detroit. I'm like, what do you get here? I mean, I guess you're assuming you can't keep him long term and don't want to pay him. I don't know. Do they like, does Detroit actually want to help Minnesota? Like, I don't really get it. I don't know what happened here, but Minnesota can use a tight end. They haven't had a lot of production from the tight end position. To imagine a 6-1 Vikings team with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, a impressive offense already, adding what I would say is one of the top 4 tight ends in the NFL. like that game TJ Hawkinson had against Seattle, taking over and carrying the Lions offense. There's only a couple guys in the NFL that could even do that. So TJ Hawkinson, man, is, I think, even underrated somehow because he's played in Detroit. No one really notices him. He's also a tight end, which is a rare position. This is a massive move, and Minnesota got even better. And, I think we could get a NFC title game between Minnesota and Philadelphia, actually, which is very a very interesting thought and really cool to see that they finally hired the right head coach with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Now, there was another big trade. Receiver Chase Claypool was traded from Pittsburgh to Chicago. The Steelers got a 2023 second-round pick in return for trading away Chase Claypool. I like this trade, kind of for both teams, actually. I don't love it for Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that later, actually, during the Ask Zach Patreon question part of the show. I think Pittsburgh kind of ran out of patience while waiting for Chase Claypool to develop even further. They also still have Deontay Johnson at receiver and George Pickens, so they've got talent at receiver. They draft really well at receiver. I think they're confident they can replace him. They got a second-round pick for him, which is pretty decent, actually. That being said, so Pittsburgh, is solid. It could be worse. Chicago, I feel like, am I the only person who likes Chase Claypool? I've got a lot of messages, people like, can you believe the Bears gave up so much to get him? I'm like, so much to get him? What? Chase Claypool's awesome. And the Bears need a receiver, and I don't know they're guaranteed to get a receiver as talented as Chase Claypool with that second-round pick. Oh, yeah, by the way, you got the rest of the year for Chase Claypool and Justin Fields to develop chemistry. Chase Claypool's a big receiver, 6'4". He can make big catches downfield. He can run the ball. The dude has a ton of potential. And so I'm excited. I look at this trade, I'm like, this is sweet. I love Chicago is supporting their young quarterback, Justin Fields. They got him help. Seriously, this trade made me so happy. I was like, this is awesome. And the offense in Chicago has so much potential. They've got two powerful running backs, David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. They create a ton of yards after contact. That means their running backs run for yards after getting hit. And if you don't block perfectly for Khalil Herbert or David Montgomery, they're still going to find a way to run for yards. I've seen it happen. I've watched a lot of the Bears offense this year. Two awesome running backs. Then they have now Chase Claypool at receiver, this big physical guy, paired with a speedy receiver, Darnell Mooney. They complement each other very well. Darnell Mooney, not very big, but gets behind defenders. Chase Claypool is a jump ball receiver who can make big plays. You got N'Keal Harry, a guy who's a former first-round pick who I'm skeptical of, but N'Keal Harry has talent. He was a first-round pick for a reason, and he still could maybe develop into some kind of weapon for Chicago. And then you got Cole Kmet at tight end. I mean, Justin Fields now, you blink and you're like, holy crap, there's actually a decent offense around Justin Fields suddenly. And it's amazing how that one move, because of the skill set Chase Claypool has, he complements Darnell Mooney so well. They're going to work great together. I love it. I love it so much. I'm so happy. I've been really tracking the progress the Bears offense has been making. And I started the year saying, I feel bad for Justin Fields. They didn't support him at all. And they did. They got him a receiver. One I like that I'm excited about who fits really well with Justin Fields and that offense in Chicago. So I just think I'm over the moon. I think it's a great move. I love what Ryan Poles did here, going to get Chase Claypool, and I think it's awesome. Now, I talked last week about how Chicago traded defensive end Robert Quinn to Philly for a fourth-round pick. I thought that was a good move. It helped Philly's defensive line. Robert Quinn is 32 years old. It makes sense why you got rid of him all around. But now I got more news. Chicago has also traded away their star linebacker, Roquan Smith. So they traded away Robert Quinn. They traded for Chase Claypool. And Chicago, again, also has traded away their star linebacker, Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith got traded to Baltimore. Chicago got a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick in return for Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith wanted a new contract, and the offer he got wasn't good enough, so he wanted out. And now Roquan Smith is on a good football team, the Ravens. They fit him well. He's probably eventually going to get paid by Baltimore. In fact, let me check that now. I hope that while I've been working today, Roquan Smith hasn't gotten a new contract. Let's see. Nope. I don't really care about the Kyler Murray stuff. So no. So far, Roquan Smith doesn't have a new contract. Did I say Kyler Murray? I meant, should I even say Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn? I don't want to talk about that story. I try to care. I'm like, it's all just a mess. Kyrie Irving is infuriating and weird. Anyway, I think Roquan Smith fits very well with the Ravens. I think they are going to pay him eventually, and I like this move. I think it works well for both of them. They don't have to pay the guy that they don't want to pay as much as he wants, and Baltimore gets a new linebacker, and everyone's happy. There was another massive move, by the way. I think this is a huge underrated move, and it's a team in the AFC trying to become a top-tier Super Bowl contender. Edge rusher Bradley Chubb was traded from Denver to Miami. Miami got another star player. Bradley Chubb is a really good edge rusher. He was a number 5 overall pick in 2018. In the trade, Miami not only got Bradley Chubb, they also got a 2025 fifth-round pick. Denver got a 2023 first-round pick. That's the one that belongs to the 49ers. So however the 49ers do this year impacts the first-round pick Denver now has. Denver also got a 2024 fourth-round pick and running back Chase Edmonds. By the way, Miami also traded a 2023 fifth-round pick to the 49ers for running back Jeff Wilson. So Jeff Wilson, the running back now, is going to reunite in Miami with his former offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel and replace Chase Edmonds. So they got rid of Chase Edmonds in the Bradley Chubb trade, replaced him with Jeff Wilson. The story here is that Miami got Bradley Chubb, an incredible pass rusher, a guy's going to get after the quarterback. They also gave him a 5-year, $110 million contract extension. Miami is trying everything they can to push for a Super Bowl. It's also smart because their quarterback Tua is cheap right now. He's on a rookie contract, and I think Miami's got to take advantage of that. Right now, the top of the NFL and the AFC, top of the NFL period maybe, is like, Buffalo and Kansas City. Miami's right behind him, and they are trying to push their way up in the AFC. I love it. You got to take advantage. When you're paying your quarterback nothing, you got to take advantage of that window of time. Now, by the way, on one side, they have Bradley Chubb. On the other side, Miami's got Jalen Phillips, a 2021 first-round pick, who's also a good edge rusher. So I'm really excited to watch the defense in Miami because they've got these two guys who complement each other well and are going to cause a lot of problems for opposing quarterbacks. And I've already been enjoying watching Miami every week, watching their offense. Now I'm excited to watch their defense as well. And I can't wait, man. Let me check. I'm curious. I can't remember if Miami has played Buffalo already twice this year. Miami Dolphins schedule, because if somehow they play them again, so why is it? It's always so complicated. Look at the schedules online. I don't know why it is. Like specifically on mobile, it's always terrible. Dolphins schedule. They play week 1 the Patriots, the Ravens, Buffalo week 3, and they haven't played Buffalo a second time yet. So I'm okay. Good. That means that during NFL Week 15, Miami plays on the road at Buffalo, which is tough because that's going to be a cold game near the end of the year in Buffalo, December. But they're going to have two really good pass rushers, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, getting after the quarterback. I don't know how Tua and that passing game in Miami is going to handle the cold, probably windy weather of Buffalo Week 15, but I'm really excited to see how Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips get after the quarterback, Josh Allen, who resides in Buffalo. There was kind of a shrewd move I want to talk about that got made. Jets running back Breece Hall tore his ACL. He's out for the year. It's very sad. But the Jets made a smart move because they traded for Jaguars running back James Robinson. James Robinson is awesome. I'll tell you in a second why I like him. But the Jaguars got a conditional 6th-round pick that becomes a 5th-round pick if James Robinson runs for over 600 yards this year. He's already run for 357 yards in 8 games, so it's very likely that he's going to reach 600 the rest of the year. So basically, the Jaguars gave up a 5th-round pick to trade away. The Jets traded away a 5th-round pick to get James Robinson. Here's why I love James Robinson. He was an undrafted free agent in 2020. And as a rookie, he ran for over 1,000 yards. He's so underrated. He's so cool. For some reason in the first round, then after that, the Jaguars drafted running back Travis Etienne, which made no sense. They didn't need Travis Etienne. They had James Robinson. I guess they can't understand value. And we're like, let's get an expensive player. Oh, could have got an offensive lineman. Instead, you got a redundant draft pick with another running back. Anyway, they didn't need James Robinson very much anymore, so they traded him away. And I just got to say, this is a great move by the Jets. I love it. I love it so much. You lost your running back. It was painful, but you replaced him with a guy who can also play. And I think it's just a really good pickup by the New York Jets to go get running back James Robinson and fill the void after Breece Hall got injured. All right, receiver Calvin Ridley was traded from Atlanta to Jacksonville. The Jaguars got Calvin Ridley. Atlanta got a 2023 fifth-round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth-round pick. Here are the conditions. They're very interesting. If Calvin Ridley stays on the roster, that remains a fourth-round pick. If Calvin Ridley becomes a if Calvin Ridley has good numbers, there's a certain parameter, certain thresholds he has to meet. But if Calvin Ridley has good numbers, and good stats, that pick becomes a third-round pick. And that pick will become a second-round pick if the Jaguars sign Calvin Ridley to a contract extension. So Atlanta got rid of Calvin Ridley for a fifth-round pick and what could even become a second-round pick. Not a bad trade for Atlanta. Calvin Ridley's a decent player, I think really talented. Here's the irony, though. and the most hilarious and crazy and maybe even underrated storyline of this entire trade deadline. So Calvin Ridley got traded from Atlanta to Jacksonville. He is suspended for the entire 2022 season for betting on a Jaguars-Falcons game last year. And I believe specifically he bet that Atlanta would beat Jacksonville. He bet that his own team at the time would win and beat the Jaguars. And I think it's kind of an interesting way to trash talk. You literally put money on it. We're going to beat you. I feel so strongly. I'm going to bet on that. That actually cost him his entire 2022 season. But it's so funny that he got in trouble for gambling on a Falcons-Jaguars game and then got traded from the Falcons to the Jaguars. It's hilarious and weird. Like, do we live in a simulation? Did the computer make a rounding error and forget to, auto-generate the team he got traded to? You know what I mean? Every once in a while you have a moment where you're like, is this real life? Are we all living in a computer? And that's one of those moments where I'm like, that's too weird that's real. Anyway, I'm 97% kidding there. Running back Nyheim Hines got traded from Indy to Buffalo. The Colts in the trade got running back Zach Moss and a conditional sixth-round pick. And what Buffalo got was another awesome player. Nyheim Hines is a receiving running back. He's great at catching passes. He's a good weapon. He's only 25 years old, by the way. Nyheim Hines is under contract through 2024. I have no idea why Indy decided to trade away Nyheim Hines. He's a good player, and the Colts just helped Buffalo get better. I don't know if that was on purpose or what, but it made very little sense from a Colts perspective. There's another small trade Buffalo made. Buffalo also traded for Atlanta safety Dean Marlowe. Atlanta got a 2023, that's next year's draft, a seventh-round pick. So Buffalo gave up a seventh-round pick to go get a backup safety, Dean Marlowe. I think this is a wise move. You're getting depth at safety, a position Buffalo's had a lot of injuries at. Micah Hyde is out for the year at safety. Jordan Poyer's been hurt for them. This is good insurance. Dean Marlowe, while he is a backup, he played in Buffalo in 2018, in 2019, and 2020. He knows Bill's defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier's system, and I've heard Leslie Frazier talk a lot so far this year about depth in the secondary and how, basically your scout team players are becoming an extension of your roster because of injuries. And so I think that it's a very smart move that I think could really pay off in the playoffs to have a guy who knows your system and, fits well and how he works. I mean, we'll talk in a second about a move Kansas City made where Kansas City, to save $1 million, traded away a backup corner. And I hope that lack of depth doesn't cost them. I think Buffalo made a move to go get more depth in their secondary for a playoff run. And Kansas City, on the flip side, traded away depth at the corner position. Another corner, Steelers traded for, Dean Marlowe is a safety. But I was talking about a corner, Rashad Fenton in Kansas City. So the Steelers have traded for corner Will Jackson. He's now going from Washington to Pittsburgh. The Steelers got a conditional seventh-round pick for 2025 and Will Jackson. Washington got a conditional 2025 sixth-round pick. The rest of the year for Will Jackson is basically an audition. They can cut him after this year. So Will Jackson this year has a chance to prove whether he's worth $12.75 million next fall. in 2023. They also made some kind of move, like an adjustment to his contract to save the Steelers a little bit of money. Will Jackson's playing ball. I think he wants to be in Pittsburgh, and he's willing to adjust his contract if necessary to stay there. He wants to play. I think he likes Pittsburgh and wants to be there. Here's another trade. We talked about it briefly a second ago. Corner Rashad Fenton was traded from Kansas City to Atlanta. He lost his starting job in Kansas City. They've got two awesome corners that have really emerged in KC. But I want to kind of send a message here, which is that Kansas City decided to trade away a player that could have added depth in their secondary during a playoff run. And, by trading away Rashad Fenton, Kansas City saved $1.4 million in cap space, which, congratulations, that's a smart money move. And, you got a conditional 7th-round pick for him. That's great. But I hope that none of the corners for Kansas City get hurt, because if you traded away a former starting corner who would have given you a lot of depth in case of an injury, you traded your guy away, and then you lose a corner and end up needing him, that would be a big blow. And I just hope that Kansas City doesn't end up regretting this trade, and I hope they stay healthy throughout the playoffs. I want to revisit 3 trades I've already talked about. Technically, these are trade deadline trades, but they happened a few days early, so I already covered them. But let's remind everyone. Receiver Robbie Anderson was traded from Carolina to Arizona. Remember, he was dramatically sent to the locker room during a game by his head coach, interim head coach Steve Wilks. Carolina, for Robbie Anderson, got a 2024 6th-round pick and a 2025 7th-round pick. Arizona made the move because their receiver, Marquise Brown, got hurt. Now, week 8, Kyler Murray threw an interception against Minnesota, trying to hit Robbie Anderson deep and badly underthrew it. So far, hasn't been outstanding, the impact Robbie Anderson has made in Arizona. Receiver Kadarius Toney was traded from the Giants to Kansas City. He was a 2021 first-round pick for New York, but he was barely available. He often missed time because of a hamstring injury. The rumor is that Kadarius Toney faked an injury to get onto a better team. Now, in the trade, the Giants got a 3rd-round pick and a 6th-round pick. But I would imagine, Kadarius Toney's a really talented player, so I would imagine that KC is going to get the most out of him, and I think it's even possible that Kadarius Toney becomes a star receiver, playing with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's system in KC. Finally, running back Christian McCaffrey was traded from Carolina to the 49ers. The trade happened way before the trade deadline. I think the offer was just too good for Carolina to pass up, so they didn't care that the trade was early. Trading away McCaffrey, Carolina got a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th-round pick for 2023 and a 2024 5th-round pick. And the trade worked out for everybody, because in McCaffrey's second game with the 49ers, he had 3 touchdowns, and I don't know, it's a great fit. Kyle, people said that the 49ers gave up too much to get Christian McCaffrey. I think if any team was going to get Christian McCaffrey, I could not have thought of a better team than the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan's going to get the most out of him. McCaffrey's only 26 years old. He turned 26 in June. I love the move. I think it's awesome. And I think most teams trading away a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th-round pick to get Christian McCaffrey. There's a lot of teams that would make that trade and I'd say they gave up too much. But not every coach is Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan's really creative, and I think going to get the most out of McCaffrey. So I think McCaffrey's more valuable to the 49ers than it would be to most other NFL teams. So I've got no problem with that trade value and amount they gave away to get McCaffrey. How about manna from heaven? Hallelujah, if you are a Washington Commanders fan. Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder has hired Bank of America Securities to help him sell the team. Wow. So that's part of this. By the way, though, shortly after that announcement was made that he's considering and looking into his options selling a team, it was revealed that the U.S. Attorney's Office has opened a criminal investigation into allegations that the team in Washington engaged in financial improprieties. It's a federal investigation. The feds are after Dan Snyder. And remember when Dan Snyder said he wouldn't sell the team and then also threatened to blackmail a bunch of billionaires? well, that clearly something happened. I would imagine in the dirty dealings between billionaires, something happened behind the scenes with Dan Snyder. But regardless, Washington is going to be better off with a new owner. who doesn't do sketchy stuff behind the scenes. And also, hopefully, they have an owner next who will financially invest in the team. And, Washington is known as being one of the stingiest franchises. They don't spend money on stuff. It's not a great environment for players. They're not spending money to make money and win games. And so I'm excited for them to get a new owner because the players are going to get a better experience. It's better for the fans, better for the players, and maybe one of the best days in the history of the Washington franchise. Let's talk about college football. Give me an all-encompassing. We're going to talk about last week. We're going to talk about next week. I'm going to share some thoughts. Last week was not a very great week for college football. It was college football week 9. Most of the games were blowouts. Now, give me 1 second. There's a train going by. So I'm going to be right back as soon as the train has passed. It's got to be the longest train I've ever seen in my entire life. It's going and going and going. Every time I think it's gone, it continues. I'm like, more train? Okay. Come on. Guys, what are trains doing? I'm trying to record a podcast, and these stupid trains are so inconsiderate. Didn't you know we're recording Strong Opinion Sports right now? The trains need to understand. We need to put the trains in their place. Gosh, if anyone ever creates a football team with a train or locomotive mascot, we'll remember this moment and make fun of them endlessly. Okay, the train is gone. So college football week 9 wasn't a great game. Wasn't a great week. Wasn't a great week of college football. Most of the games were blowouts, although one game was kind of misleading. Ohio State beat Penn State 44-31. But with 10 minutes left in this game, actually Penn State was beating Ohio State 21-16. Then Ohio State exploded, and they had 28 points in the final 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. I gotta say, I'm so tired of watching Penn State quarterback Sean Clifford. I just, the last few years, every time Penn State is in a big game, I just roll my eyes and I go, is Sean Clifford still the quarterback at Penn State? Oh, he is? Oh, then shut up. They're not going to win. And Sean Clifford had 4 turnovers. That led to 21 points for Ohio State. So he just handed Ohio State opportunity after opportunity. Now it's worth noting during the game, Sean Clifford did become Penn State's all-time leading passer. So there is that, whatever that means. But that really kind of sounds about right because that's Sean Clifford's career in a nutshell, right? He plays terrible, but also somehow does well. And he's just had a weird career where he's been around so long and thrown for yards and touchdowns and done some good stuff, but in big moments just doesn't deliver over and over again. Every time. Penn State against Michigan earlier this year, I was like, eye roll. They're not going to win. They still have Sean Clifford at quarterback. And what happened there? Just every year, it's like, this guy doesn't have it. I remember watching them play Minnesota a couple years ago when he blew it and they lost to Minnesota. I'm so over Sean Clifford. I'm ready for the guy to move on, and maybe the next quarterback for Penn State will be one that actually can play well in big moments. I got to give a shout out though to defensive end for Ohio State, number 44. I'm going to totally butcher this guy's name. His first name is JT. That's probably also abbreviated because his first name might be hard to say too. I don't actually know. But his last name, and this is the way Gus Johnson, the broadcaster, pronounces it. I mean no disrespect. I'm trying the best I can to say the name right. Tui Moloau. I'm just going to call him JTT. But JTT dominated in this football game. Defensive end for Ohio State. 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick 6. For a defensive end, that's crazy, by the way. He had 2 fumble recoveries. He also had 2 sacks. JTT, Tui Moloau, whoever you say his name, I apologize. I can't say it, but I watched the game and I was like, this dude is incredible. He's having the performance of a lifetime. So complete domination for JTT and with Ohio State. Georgia beat Florida 42-20. The game was in Jacksonville. It wasn't very interesting. Georgia led 28-3 at halftime, pulled away, won easily. Don't really care. Tennessee beat Kentucky 44-6, a game I was hoping would be awesome last week and wasn't at all. Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker looked amazing. Again, he had 6 incomplete passes for, he threw 3 touchdowns. He also had 1 touchdown run, so he had 4 touchdowns on the day. Anytime you have 2 fewer touchdowns than you have incompletions, you probably had a good day. Unless you're a backup quarterback who, threw no touchdowns and 2 incomplete passes. I don't know. Now, this was an impressive win, though, over a solid team for Tennessee. I really thought Kentucky was going to put up more of a fight. Tennessee dominated, man. Kentucky had no shot. And I think now, after this game, I think that's why, Tennessee got ranked number 1 by the college football playoff. This win is part of why. It was just a complete dominating force. And their ability to throw the ball vertically at Tennessee is terrifying. And I think Tennessee, they played Georgia this weekend at Georgia. So they got to win this game. Tennessee has to beat Georgia. But they do have a legit shot at this moment, Friday night, as I talk. Tennessee legitimately has a shot at a national title. We will see if that continues. It's, this weekend's probably like the biggest game of the year in college football. Number 1, Tennessee at number 3, Georgia. By the way, Tennessee had these really cool all-black uniforms in this game. I loved black with like orange striping. And it was so cool. I'm like, oh man, those are sick. And I got to say, I'm so underwhelmed by Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. Everyone tells me Will Levis is a great quarterback, and they even call him elite. I'm like, are we watching the same guy? Every time I've watched Will Levis play this year, he's lost, been bad, or both. And I don't see it. He had 3 interceptions against Tennessee. 2 of them were really bad decisions. One of them was a more questionable decision where the ball was like a bang-bang play. Ball got tipped in the air and picked off. But he threw a slant that wasn't really open, and it did touch a receiver, but it probably shouldn't have been thrown there. And here's my really big question with Will Levis. He's a great leader, it sounds like. People like him, and I think that's awesome. I really do. I respect good leadership. But the Will Levis rise to becoming a first-round pick, I guess we'll say, whatever you want to call it, this ascension he's gone through, it feels like draft experts like Mike Mayock and Todd, I think McShay is his name, it feels like they're predetermining that he's going to become a star and become a franchise quarterback before the year even began, like in August. And it seems like now, because of where he was ranked before the year started, people are struggling to adjust and see the truth of how he's played this year, which has been really underwhelming. And I look at Will Levis and I'm like, that guy's supposed to be a guy drafted alongside Bryce Young. Are you on drugs? Like, what's going on here? I'm not trying to hate on Will Levis. I got nothing against the guy. Again, seems like an awesome leader, but hasn't delivered in big moments this year repeatedly. And I'm like, what's the hype on this guy? Like, he can't run like a crazy good amount. He doesn't have this crazy ability to extend plays. He doesn't have this amazing arm like Josh Allen. I don't see what he does that's elite, like skill set wise. And I've seen him be wildly underwhelming in these big moments this year. So I don't see it. So we'll see. I haven't done like a deep dive and a ton of analysis of Will Levis, but right now I'm like, I don't really understand why this guy is so hyped up. Michigan beat Michigan State last week, 29-7. It's the first time ever Jim Harbaugh has beat Mel Tucker, which is kind of interesting. He's now 1-2 against Mel Tucker at Michigan State. The game was only 13-7 at halftime, though. Michigan did pull away in the second half, but Michigan didn't completely dominate Michigan State, and it didn't convince me that Michigan is a team that's talented enough and capable enough to beat Ohio State later this year. They play each other on November 6th. Also, there was a shocking game in college football last week. K-State dominated Oklahoma State 48-0. It was a shock. I couldn't believe what happened. I watched it and was like, I sat down, literally, I'm not even kidding. I popped popcorn, had popcorn in front of me. And I eat it weird like a chameleon. I do a thing where like you pull the bowl close to your face and you use your tongue to like pick the popcorn kernels, like literally like a lizard. I'm an insane person. But I had my popcorn. I'm ready to watch this game on Saturday. I'm so stoked. And it was disgusting. It wasn't a good game. And it's not like Oklahoma State's quarterback, Spencer Sanders, got hurt or anything. He just got dominated. And by the way, K-State did have a backup quarterback. Their backup quarterback, Will Howard, balled out and threw 4 touchdown passes. So I thought it was the best game all year by K-State. They dominated up front on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And it was just kind of a wild, surprising, but cool win for K-State as they just beat the ever-living snot out of Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State was even kind of like, did that really just happen to us? And it did. It was a blowout win. This week, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee released their first rankings of the year. Here is why this matters. These guys determine who gets into the college football playoff. Here is the top 10 right now in college football, according to the Playoff Selection Committee. Number 1, they have Tennessee. 8-0 Tennessee. They've beat Alabama. They dominated Kentucky. I kind of get it. A lot of controversy when this came out, but I'm like, Tennessee's had a great year. Let's not disrespect them. The year they've had has been incredible. The number 2 team in the country is Ohio State. They're 8-0. Georgia at 8-0 is number 3 in the country. They've been number 1 on everyone's rankings until this ranking came out. That was surprising. The number 4 team in the country is Clemson at 8-0. Number 5 is Michigan at also 8-0. The first one-loss team is number 6 ranked Alabama at 7-1. The number 7 team in the country is the Big 12's finest TCU, who's 8-0. The number 8 ranked team in the nation is Oregon at 8-1. Their only loss is to number 3 ranked Georgia. Number 9 USC, who lost to Utah in one of my favorite moments of the year, by the way, where Utah went for 2 at the end to win, I believe 43-42, but I know the 2-point conversion was like so key and risky. And I love, they're like, we're going to win now and not go to overtime. And Utah knocked off USC. So USC out of contention with the college football playoff. They are 7-1 and number 9 right now. The number 10 ranked team is a 2-loss LSU team. They lost their first game to Florida State, and then they lost to, who did they lose? Oh, some other really good team. I can't remember. They were like respectable losses. We're like, okay, fair enough. And then Ole Miss, who lost a couple weeks ago, is 8-1. They're the number 11 team in the country. There are 2 big games coming up in college football. Tennessee's got to play Georgia. That's 2 top 10 teams, top 5 teams, top 3 teams even. And then later on November 26th, Michigan plays at Ohio State on November 26th. That's Michigan, currently the number 5 team in the country, against currently Ohio State, who's the number 2 team in the country. Now, this weekend in college football week 10, there are 5 big games. The biggest game of them all this weekend in college football, basically, if there's a game you're going to watch this weekend, it's this one. Like, it's going to be an event, a spectacle. I cannot wait. It's number 1 ranked Tennessee on the road at number 3 ranked Georgia. Both teams are 8-0. This is probably going to be, there have been some really good college football games this year, but this one earlier this year, I thought the game of the year so far was Alabama-Tennessee. Looks like Tennessee is going to give us another one of these incredible football games. Tennessee's quarterback, Hendon Hooker, is a stud. He's fun to watch. Georgia's quarterback, Stetson Bennett, has really won me over. Stetson Bennett's a baller. He's been kind of overlooked his entire career. He won a national title last year, and then this year he's just come out throwing haymakers, playing better than, like, extending plays, making good throws. His confidence is growing. He's getting better, and Stetson Bennett's playing with house money, man. I love it. It's pretty wild that Tennessee was ranked ahead of Georgia. I don't know what's going to happen in this game, but that's part of what makes it so good. I have no idea who's going to win. It's going to be a fun, special, huge event game, Tennessee at Georgia. If you're going to watch any game this weekend, I would even say between the NFL is not having a great weekend. If you're going to watch any football this weekend, make sure you watch Tennessee at Georgia. Game number 2 is number 6 ranked Alabama at number 10 ranked LSU. Alabama-LSU is kind of a classic rivalry, but it's the first time Brian Kelly's going to play Alabama while coaching for LSU. He's played Alabama multiple times while he was at Notre Dame. He's actually 0-2 against Nick Saban. Saban, who, by the way, was once the head coach at LSU and won a national title there. It's going to be fun and interesting. I love Bryce Young, the quarterback at Alabama. He's my favorite quarterback in the world to watch at any level, college or NFL. Alabama's 7-1. LSU is 6-2. If LSU can win this game, not only would it be a huge deal for Brian Kelly, like any skepticism you would have about Brian Kelly and was he the right hire? Like, people go, oh no, he beat Alabama, fair enough. Like, that's a great hire. Like, he would get a ton of credit in the state of Louisiana. Also, if LSU does beat Alabama, it would crush any hope of Alabama sneaking their way into the college football playoff. You're just not going to make it into the CFP with 2 losses as Alabama. So, LSU, they got a shot. I think Alabama wins here, but LSU has an opportunity to make things very interesting, validate Brian Kelly, surprise Alabama, and really ruin their season. Game number 3 this weekend in college football is number 4 ranked Clemson at Notre Dame. It's a big game. We talked about Brian Kelly a second ago. He left Notre Dame behind. Without him, they've gone 4-4 so far this year. It's been kind of a roller coaster of a year for Notre Dame. But they are talented. Notre Dame has a shot to win this football game. But the big question is, who will be Clemson's quarterback? Because last time Clemson played, they barely beat Syracuse, and they had to bench their starting quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. He had 3 turnovers, and freshman quarterback Cade Klubnik had to lead them to victory. Now, head coach for Clemson, Dabo Swinney, has swore that DJ Uiagalelei is still their starting quarterback. But I'm like, that could just be a really great tactic to catch the other team off guard when Cade Klubnik walks out and is a starting quarterback on the road. So we will see. Clemson at Notre Dame. It's a massive game. And I don't know who the quarterback is going to be at Clemson. We're told it's DJ, but I'm like, I don't believe you, dude. I saw Kentucky tell us Will Levis was playing, and then he walked out in a boot. I saw Cameron Rising on a Thursday night at Washington State do warm-ups as the starting quarterback for Utah. Then the first quarter comes around, and suddenly he's nowhere to be found, and the backup quarterback's playing. Like, you see tricks like this happen all the time in college football. So I have no idea who the starting quarterback is going to be for Clemson. They say DJ. I say I would probably start Cade Klubnik if I was them. We will see what happens. Game number 4 is number 24 ranked Texas at number 13 ranked Kansas State. K-State is coming off of a 48-0 victory over Oklahoma State. Texas, their last game was also against Oklahoma State, and it was probably the worst game of the year for Quinn Ewers, their quarterback at Texas. He was terrible. So I'm really curious how Quinn Ewers is going to bounce back for this week on the road at K-State, number 24 ranked and number 13 ranked. And then game number 5, it's more of an honorable mention. I can't imagine myself watching this game, but it's number 21 Wake Forest at number 22 North Carolina State, NC State. It's an ACC matchup. I feel like it's worth noting because it's 2 top 25 teams. I don't care. Like, there's no playoff implication here. It's just, if you love football and you want a good game, you probably are going to find a good game here that's interesting and comes down to the wire. But personally, there's so many other good games I'm going to spend my time watching. I'm not going to make time for this one. But I thought I'd put it on the list and throw it out there in case you're like, hey, Zach, any good games this weekend? And you're like, I'm a nerd like you and I watch every game. You can watch this one too. All right. We've still got a couple topics left. I told you, this is going to be, how long have we been recording? We've been going and going. It's longest episode in the history of Strong Opinion Sports. Basically, 2 episodes combined. We got 3 topics left. Ask Zach, an NFL Week 9 preview, and we'll even end with Formula 1. What's left could still basically be its own entire episode. That's how much longer I think we're going to go. Let's jump in. If you want to support the show and help me, your boy, who lives out of a truck, literally, go to patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to. Please do. Literally does pay for my car insurance. But if you want to support the show, it's $1 a month. I do not guarantee to read your question on the show. My only guarantee is I look at every single question with my eyeballs. I pick the top couple to read on the podcast. You can also donate more if you want to, $2, $3, $5. I appreciate any money that comes in. And I want to give a big shout out. Thank you to the people on Patreon. I can't say thank you enough to you guys. You guys have made a huge impact on my life. And I mean that seriously. It's been a really tough 5 months for me. And who would have thought, becoming homeless would be as difficult as it is? It has been really hard. And here we are. Now, question number 1. We got a lot of great write-ins this week. It's really cool. Alex wrote in and said, hey, Zach, what division do you think is the weakest currently in the NFL? Personally, I think it's either the NFC or AFC South, but I could also see it being the NFC North. Wanted to hear your take on this. Loving the show. Keep up the good work. It's interesting throughout the NFC North. That's surprising to me. The Vikings are awesome. Chicago's making progress. The Packers still have Aaron Rodgers. And, the Lions they got a terrible defense, but they still score, and they're not awful. To me, I think you hit it on the head the first time. The AFC South is the worst division in football. Houston is pretty bad. They're 1-6-1. I think they actually have the right quarterback. They've got some. It's just Houston's young, man. I don't want to trash on Houston. They get made fun of a lot. They're just a young football team with chaos in the front office. The Colts are a mess. They're 3-4-1. They just benched their starting quarterback. They've had 5 quarterbacks in 5 years, and they got a lot of work to do. The Colts do to make their football team better. The Jaguars are bad at 2-6. Tennessee dominates in a bad division. I think it makes Tennessee look even better, but to me, the AFC South is the worst team in the NFL. The NFC South has a lot of talent in New Orleans. I think they're just a good quarterback away. If you took the quarterback in Houston, Davis Mills, and put him in New Orleans, I think New Orleans would win a lot of games. Tom Brady Tampa's still got Tom Brady. Atlanta is not terrible. They run the ball really well. Carolina's got some interesting players. Like Carolina, the AFC South is, to me, the worst division of football, especially when you look at the other examples you threw out there. Davis writes in. Davis says, Zach, I think Coach Frank Reich is safe. Here is why. That's the Colts head coach. With this season going south, I can see why Jim Irsay wants a change at quarterback. However, after the Week 8 loss, I hope he realizes it's more than quarterback. Jim Irsay is a personable owner and takes things personally. So I don't think he will fire Coach Reich. Instead, maybe ease up and let him and Ballard do their jobs. Hopefully, the Colts draft a quarterback instead of trading or picking up a veteran. Most Colts fans I know would rather wait for a developing quarterback than a new one every year. Honestly, if we put if we got, let's say, Anthony Richardson in Florida and a quick wide receiver, the Colts would be in a good spot. We've got 2 jump ball receivers in Pierce and Pittman. If we had that special quarterback and a Tyreek Hill type wide receiver, the Colts wouldn't be in as bad of a spot. I like Anthony Richardson in Indy. He is so talented, man. Anthony Richardson is the quarterback that, when I say if you've got Taylor Heineke in Washington or Davis Mills in Houston, don't replace them because they're about the same. It's a lateral move to go to like Will Levis or something. Anthony Richardson has a lot of work to go. He needs to learn. He's such a raw mess right now as a quarterback. But Anthony Richardson, the quarterback at Florida, despite his bad habits, despite his learning how to read defenses, dude, he works really hard. He's an awesome dude, and he is the most talented quarterback in college football. Like, he is Josh Allen reincarnated. He has that frame. Like, dude, I'm telling you. I don't know. I mean, Jamarcus Russell was an incredible talent, and he failed. He didn't work hard enough. But talent-wise, Anthony Richardson is the best quarterback and most talented. Not the best. Sorry, excuse me. He's the most talented quarterback, physically gifted quarterback in all of college football. Anthony Richardson is. I would support the Colts drafting him. It'd be a work in progress. It would take a while. But, and I don't like the thought of the Colts getting another veteran quarterback. We'll see. Is Frank Reich safe? That's the question you posed to me. Here's the thing, Davis. You are trusting that Jim Irsay, the Colts owner, is going to act rationally, which he regularly does not. He regularly gives like terrible quotes and says stuff and acts impulsively. I feel bad for Frank Reich, man. Like, he's had a terrible situation with quarterbacks and terrible luck. I mean, talk about luck. When Frank Reich was hired, he thought, dude, Andrew Luck is going to be my quarterback in Indy. This is going to be fun. Andrew Luck retired. He had to go to, God, who's it been? Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger. It's a disaster. I feel bad for Frank Reich. Like, he took a job thinking he was going to have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and then that guy said, peace out. Ian K. writes in, says, hey, Zach, I think the world is being too hard on Russell Wilson. Is he a little cringy? Sure. But there have been so many uncalled for attacks on his personality, especially from former teammates, which, no offense to them, aren't the most well put together humans. Richard Sherman had his whole incident last year, and I love Marshawn Lynch, but he's kind of a strange guy. I get that going through this, his agent to speak to him is strange, but had they considered that maybe he doesn't want to talk to them? I mean, they haven't exactly been kind to him. I'd also like to point out that maybe Russell Wilson behaves this way because this is how he made it to where he is today, being the always positive guy. And it only recently became cringy because he isn't winning for the first time in his career. The balance may also seem off because everyone in Seattle is very emotional and Wilson is a more business, professional, positive guy. Also, maybe that's how Wilson sees this, as a business. He doesn't have to be friends with these guys. He just has to work with them. I'm not saying that's right. It's just a thought. Regardless, I think attacking his personality is wrong. And by all available accounts, it seems like a nice guy. Does he come off a little corny and sometimes fake? Sure. But there are way worse things you could be. ENK plays the devil's advocate here. And I think supports Russ a little bit. And I hear you, ENK. I think you make a lot of great points here. Usually people who are the most judgmental, I've learned, have the most to hide and the most skeletons in their closet, we'll say. So when you find somebody who's very open and kind, I think you're wrong about Marshawn Lynch. Kind of a strange guy. Marshawn Lynch has got one of the best hearts out there. He just does his own thing. But I don't think he's weird. I think he's the most authentic person maybe I've ever seen, actually. I think many people don't even realize why they don't like Russell Wilson. Russ is a meme. He's fun to make fun of. But here's why Russell Wilson, I think, rubs a lot of people the wrong way. He's so inauthentic that it's uncomfortable to watch. He never, ever says the wrong thing. And not only does he never say the wrong thing, he's always trying so clearly hard to say the right thing. It's so calculated. It's so... There's never a moment of raw authenticity with him. It's always, always so cold and calculated. And, you know, he's also not relatable. Like, first of all, I just want to see Russell Wilson be real and answer a question like a human being, not a robot. I get it. He's protecting his brand, but that's where money, I think, impacted him. Like, Russ has always been protect the brand, protect the brand, protect the brand. It's like, how about be real and make your brand into you being yourself? So there's that. Not connecting with your teammates is a big deal. Like, you kind of gloss over that, but that's massive. If Russ isn't connecting with his teammates and seems unrelatable, that's a huge problem. And he comes across as kind of aloof and totally disconnected. He's got 12 bathrooms in his house. Like, he's not a normal person. Like, he's on a different spectrum completely than everybody, including his teammates. And Russ is like literally an internet meme. He's so much fun to make fun of that it's blown up. Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. It's everywhere. And I don't like the mean-spirited stuff, but most of the jokes about Russ aren't mean-spirited. And also, Russell Wilson makes so much money. He's got a $245 million contract. So I got crocodile tears for Russell Wilson. That much money, $245 million, comes with pressure and expectations. So, like, I don't know, man. Are people being hard on him? Yeah. Is it deserved? I think also, yeah. All right. I love this name. Reefer Madness says, "Hi, Zach. Longtime listener. It's my first comment in a while. Thanks for writing in, Reefer. Love you. Love your name. Wilson's..." Wrong write-in. Reefer Madness says, "Hi, Zach. Longtime listener. It's my first comment in a while. Hope all is well. We're halfway through the year. Which sophomore quarterback has impressed you the most this year? Back then, you said Zach Wilson was the best quarterback in the draft class. With a loss to New England last week, do you think Jets fans should worry about his play? Especially now that the team is good enough to win. I wonder how the Jets will respond to his play from here on out." The most impressive quarterback to me is in his second year in the NFL, sophomore quarterback, is Justin Fields. Justin Fields' ability to run is special. I mean, it's him, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen that are most terrifying. And then I throw Kyler Murray in there. Those are the four quarterbacks I would least like to tackle in the NFL. Justin Fields is such a good runner, and it makes him special. He's getting better at playing quarterback and making reads and decision-making. But you talk about Zach Wilson. I want to read Nathan's question then as well, because Nathan wrote in, and I started to read it, but accidentally I skipped a little bit too far ahead. Nathan says, "Hey, Zach, I'm just going to come out and say it, but Zach Wilson sucks. Recently, I've taken your advice and have respected the growth of the younger generation of rookies, like Fields and Trevor Lawrence or even Kenny Pickett. But Zach Wilson is a problem. The Jets have a really good team in New York, and the only thing holding them back is Zach Wilson. I don't think the Jets will have a super low pick this year, but if they do you think they should draft a quarterback? I think they are super close to being a huge competitor in the AFC, but in my opinion, they can't be a competitor with Zach Wilson at the helm at quarterback." When will the Jets' patience wear thin? Because the lack of discipline from Zach Wilson, the stupid throws are a problem. Now, the benefit to Zach Wilson is that he's got this ability to run around and extend plays and avoid sacks, and that's special. Plus, Zach Wilson throws a really good ball. Like, he's got a great arm. But even being patient and recognizing how talented he is at running around and extending plays, you can't make the stupid throws like he did against New England Week 8. I would stick with Zach Wilson at quarterback. I would keep drafting players around him. Like, a late first-round quarterback isn't going to help the Jets. It's totally unhelpful to have a redundant player, and it just doesn't make any sense to draft a quarterback if you're the Jets. So I would stick with Zach Wilson, but he does have to play better, and I like people calling him out. I don't like people giving up on him, though. Call him out. Let's be clear, he's got to be better, but he's not useless and hopeless. Devin. Devin's got a good one. Devin's got 2 questions today, I believe. Devin writes in. Devin says, my throat, by the way, I've been talking now for I don't know how many hours in a row, but it's been a long time. Devin says, Buenos dias, Senor Zach. Dude, what happened to Carson Wentz? He's gone from surefire MVP to people questioning if Taylor Heineke is better than him. What happened and what led to this? I'd love to hear your angle. As always, keep grinding. In the words of Mike T, there's going to be better days. Keep your head high, fighting all the time. I look forward to the next show, Devin. What's up with Carson Wentz? Carson Wentz, first of all, doesn't help himself out very much. He's not a great leader. And when you're not playing well and people don't like you, they tend to move on. And I ask a legitimate question. What is Carson Wentz really good at? Like, what is he just great at? But he can't run around and extend plays. He's not super accurate. He regularly makes bad decisions. He's often hurt. It's the same problems over and over again, every team he's been. Carson has fallen because I think part of it is his confidence really got shaken up. And as a person who's at my all-time lowest confidence, to be totally honest, I live in a truck. My life's not going exactly great. It's embarrassing. It's weird and hard. It's really difficult. And you kind of get shaken when things go wrong in your life. I think winning the Super Bowl in some ways was the worst thing that ever happened to him because he didn't win the Super Bowl. And his ego really took a hit and it was really hard for him. So he's just fallen apart emotionally and in his mind. But he's not a great leader. Like, he's not very good at rallying his teammates around him. He's just unlikable. And I think that's when you're not clearly elite at anything and you're not likable, people run out of patience and move on. And that's what's happened with Carson Wentz, in my opinion. Carter writes in. Carter's got a very interesting question that I don't want to talk too much about. I got to call. Right before I read Carter's question, let me say this. I've referred to living in my truck. I do live in my truck. I'm not doing great, but I made a choice to live in my truck. Renting a room or being stuck in one place sounded horrible. I said I'd rather live in my truck and be mobile and get to go on adventures and move around than just rent a room that's really cheap and stay in one place. So I'm not a victim, and I didn't mean to come across as a victim when I referred to I live in my truck and it sucks. Because I actually like it, and I chose this, and I've been having a lot of fun. So let's be clear there. Carter writes in, though. Carter says this. Have you seen the video from Pat McAfee where they aren't allowed to use any of the NFL's logos in their content? Can't use team logos or the shield. They also talk about the fact that their rights to use highlights is a $4 million deal, but that doesn't come with logo rights. I see what you're dealt with when doing film breakdowns now. So I'm not going to talk about what happened with me. I think people notice. They miss film analysis. And I try making them occasionally. They don't make any revenue, so I don't want to talk anymore about what I don't want to make myself a target. I'm not going to talk about me. Pat McAfee has a ton of power. I watched the clip of Pat McAfee, and I'll say this. I don't like the NFL. I don't trust the NFL. And it's terrifying making money talking about the NFL because they've got so much power and they can switch things off anytime they want to. I live in a pickup truck. They can switch things off anytime they want to. All right. Carter, I hope I answered your question a little bit. Devin writes in. Devin says this. Zach, if I was a Bears fan, I would be extremely excited trading a second-round pick for Chase Claypool. As a Steelers fan, I don't like this Chase Claypool move, however. I am uncomfortable getting rid of a weapon who is getting way better with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Plus, Kenny Pickett is en route to throw the most passes by a rookie quarterback in NFL history, and he didn't even start until week 5. Getting rid of Chase Claypool, I believe, adds even more weight to Pickett's shoulders in a developmental year. With this said, this is obviously a sign that the Steelers are calling this season a wash and a rebuilding year. If this extra second-round pick gives Pittsburgh the capital to make a move for Jordan Addison, Kenny's wide receiver number 1 in college, should they do it? Or should they invest in the offensive line and take a wide receiver in a later round, given how good they are getting late-round receivers? There's good and bad to this trade, man, and this trade makes me feel more bad than good. As always, I will look forward to the next show, Devin. Dude, I love this move for Chicago, and it feels like Pittsburgh made a big mistake trading Chase Claypool away. Like, oh, okay. Well, now you need another receiver. Like, I don't know why you got rid of a perfectly good wide receiver who is making progress and getting better when now all you have to do is get another one. I love the thought of them getting Jordan Addison, the guy who went to Pittsburgh, transferred to USC, used to play with Kenny Pickett. He's an incredible receiver. If you can get him, the Steelers should. And you're going to see teams are just going to make as many trades as possible to get receivers because receivers are at an all-time high value-wise. Look at what happens when you add Tyreek Hill to Miami. They're now a contender. Like, receivers make a huge difference. The only thing I can maybe see with Pittsburgh, Chase Claypool was deeper into a rookie contract, and maybe they looked around and were like, look, we got George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool. We can't pay everyone. We got to pick and choose our receivers, and maybe we get a better rookie receiver on a different contract next year who would save us money. It might be a money thing. I don't know. The move sucks. I think it hurts Kenny Pickett's development for sure. The only way I actually think I ever like this move, I think Pittsburgh made a big mistake. Unless, here's a big if this move leads to Pittsburgh getting Jordan Addison, the receiver who used to play with Kenny Pickett in college, who plays at USC now, if this trade leads to them getting Jordan Addison, hey, it's a great move. Otherwise, terrible move. I don't like it. I think it's great for Chicago. I think I got a great receiver who's going to help their offense and make a big impact. And I think you're hurting. You're playing with fire. You're messing with the development of your young rookie quarterback, Kenny Pickett, and I just do not like that. It's deeply uncomfortable and scary to me. All right, Carl writes in. Carl, I got a question for you. Your username is Carl, but you sign off with Scythic Gamer. Do you want to be Carl or do you want to be Scythic Gamer? Which name would you like to go by? I love you, man. I appreciate you. I want to do what's best for you. I want to lift you up in whatever way you want to be lifted up. I want to promote the name you want. But it's eternally unclear which name you want. maybe the fact that you sign off as Scythic Gamer says that. Either way, you write in and say, hey, Zach, I went to the Washington Colts game last Sunday with my Colts friend. Very fun time. I've been to 4 NFL stadiums so far. Washington, Chicago, Tampa, and now Indy. By far, my favorite stadium I've ever been to is Indy's. Its placement in the center of the city made it so nice to walk to and from our hotel, and navigating the stadium was quick and painless. Definitely made it better that my team won there. What stadiums have you been to, and what have been your favorite and least favorite stadiums? Keep up the great work. And then you say Scythic Gamer. I think that's what you want to go by, but I'm not sure because your name on Patreon is Carl. I've been to 4 NFL stadiums. I've also been to Qualcomm Stadium, or whatever it's called now, in San Diego. Oh man, I've been to Autzen Stadium. I've been to a lot of college. I've been to a lot of college stadiums actually. Basically, I've been because I played college football and was recruited, and then I worked in college football for a while. But as far as professional stadiums, I've only been to Seattle, Cincinnati, Dallas, and New York. New York is awful. Probably the worst stadium in the NFL as far as experience. Because here's the thing. I was staying in Manhattan. I went to an XFL game there. And it's just a parking lot in New Jersey. It's so far away from the city. It's hard to get there. I would imagine it's really fun to tailgate there because it is just a parking lot and people have to trek there and probably stay there all day. But you also tailgate because you have to, because there's not really anything else there. Dallas is cool. It's in Arlington. It's big. At Dallas, the Cowboys Stadium feels like a mountain, literally. It gets looming on the horizon. You're like, what's that big white thing? Oh, it's the stadium. And then you're like, somewhere other part of the city, and you're like, that's still the big white thing. It's still like the stadium feels like a mountain, literally, like that just artificially was built. You can see it everywhere. It's crazy. Seattle has got a dope stadium. I was in Seattle earlier today. So cool. The stadium is downtown. It's beautiful. I went to a Mariners game there. It's right next to the Mariners Stadium. Seattle Stadium is one of my favorites, but my personal favorite stadium I've ever been to, and I think a massively underrated city in America, Cincinnati, Ohio, the Cincinnati Bengals Stadium. It's right on the water. It's downtown. They got a Skyline Chili right there across the bridge. There's a beautiful bridge. You go to Covington, Kentucky. There's a bunch of like bars and amazing bourbon everywhere. Cincinnati is my favorite stadium. I bet it's similar to what you described with Indy, where it's downtown. It's like the center of events. And I like a stadium that's in the middle of everything. It's fun. And there's also parking. It's not like Cincinnati's a small enough city. You can like find parking downtown, and there's a parking garage. It's not miserable. I don't know. I really, really enjoyed Cincinnati's stadium. Seattle's pretty cool too. New York, man, a parking lot in New Jersey. That's literally what I would say to describe the New York Giants stadium, MetLife Stadium. All right. I believe the next question is from Nick Flames. Nick Flames says, is PJ Walker legit? As a Panthers fan, I watch him and he looks dynamic. The next question is, why have they not tried the PJ Walker experiment sooner? He looks comfortable and effective in this offense. I think PJ Walker is kind of a Taylor Heineke level quarterback. He's better than every other option, and I would stick with him until you've got a shot at an amazing quarterback. If you can get Anthony Richardson in Carolina, he's a more physically gifted quarterback. You make the move. You get Bryce Young at Alabama. It's a better option. But PJ Walker is really underrated, man. He's a cheap quarterback that's solid and is a great value. Look, PJ Walker is a lot better than Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold or the other options in Carolina. And look, it's pretty clear. If you can get a quarterback like Geno Smith or Jalen Hurts and build a team around a solid, cheap quarterback, like, you're killing it. That's the move in the NFL right now that I think teams are going to be late figuring out. But that's the direction I see things heading is, can we pay our quarterback less money and build a great team and have competent quarterback play with great coaching that gets the most out of that lower level quarterback and then build an incredible team? That's working. That's why Philly's 8-0 right now. Gardner Minshew comes to mind as a guy that could have been the Jaguars could have done that with Gardner Minshew. They could have built a really great team around a cheaper quarterback, Gardner Minshew, and I think that done awesome. Right now they're 2-6 with Trevor Lawrence. Okay. They had Gardner. They had a good enough quarterback. Quarterback wasn't in need in Jacksonville. And they still drafted Trevor Lawrence, which even at the time I remember going like, they could have stuck with Trevor, or they could have stuck with Gardner. I just think paying a quarterback a ton of money is totally overrated. It's so insane. Like Kyler Murray getting $230 million. Okay. I guess that's fine, but he's going to be fun to watch and lose a lot of games because you can't build a good enough team around him. I don't care if you got a big name. I care if you do well. And a quarterback who does well and is cheap is a really good value. So I think you stick with PJ Walker in Carolina until a better idea comes around. But he's better than Baker. He's better than a lot of other quarterbacks. And I just think the NFL needs to start realizing, like, hey, paying a quarterback a back-breaking amount of money isn't helpful to our franchise. At least not winning-wise. It's good to, like, sell jerseys, good for business, that kind of stuff, but I don't think it necessarily puts you closer to a Super Bowl. Kyle says, hey, Zach, Kyle says, hey, Zach, I see two possibilities for the Broncos. One, they fire Nathaniel Hackett, their head coach, and try again with a new head coach and hope that Russell Wilson plays better. I think he's cooked. Or two, the Broncos could do a full-on fire sale. Trade Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, anyone of value. They cut Russell Wilson and eat the $50 million in dead cap for 2 years and finally draft a good quarterback. I'm a tired Broncos fan, and I'd rather have option two than watching Russell Wilson continue to play mostly awful for the next several years. Seahawks fans have been saying that Wilson can't throw down the middle and isn't what he used to be. What do you think the Broncos should do? And do you think Wilson is washed? Is Wilson washed? Is Russell Wilson washed? Wilson! Here's the thing, man, Kyle. If you do a fire sale and you trade everyone and you get a bunch of draft capital and Denver's got a bunch of draft picks, then you're trusting that Denver can draft a ton of good players. And do you trust that the Broncos can draft a bunch of really good players? I don't think so. Unless the only goal you have is to be bad so you can get Bryce Young, like a really good quarterback at the top of the draft, which also isn't guaranteed. Like, what if the year you get to the top of the draft, there isn't a great quarterback available and it's a bad year? So I think it's a massive gamble to do the fire sale. You already have good players. You need a good coach. A good coach can make good players look better and get the most out of them. Now, the thing I don't like about Russell Wilson is it's hard to build a team when you pay your quarterback a back-breaking amount of money. So I'm in favor of getting rid of Russ. I got no affiliation or, like deep love for Russell Wilson. I just don't know that the fire sale is wise because of the reliant on draft picks that would be required. It's a huge gamble, and not a lot of teams are really great at building a team through the draft. We've seen this idea tried, and you're not even guaranteed to get a great quarterback, to be totally honest. Carter writes in, last question of the day. Carter says, would you consider a debate-style episode with that franchise guy? You're a similar size and seem like great friends. Doing an occasional episode where you do viewer questions together and have some back and forth could be fun and generate views. He does a mailbag, and mixing it with Ask Zach would let y'all split the cost of the content and engage the viewers. Yeah, dude, the franchise guy, I love Marcus Whitman. Marcus is I would even call him a really good friend. I live in a truck. That does make, collaborating tough. Although I have great internet. It just, I'm moving around all the time. I don't know that it would just be a hurdle to overcome would be my homelessness, figuring out how to collaborate. But hey man, I'd be down. I love Marcus. Maybe I should talk to him. I don't know. I'm just doing my own thing right now. I'm worried about myself. If Marcus ever reaches out to me, I'm all ears. I would love to make that happen. But I'm not going to pursue it. I'm going to wait till Marcus makes a first move. And if Marcus is listening, dude, I love you. You're more than welcome. Let's do a show. I'd love to. I'm already like figuring my stuff out. But if he comes at me with an idea, I'm there. I'd do a lot of stuff for Marcus, man. He's a great guy. And like, I'd love to help him. And I'd love to make content with him. Like, he's so fun to talk to. When I talk to Marcus Whitman, I feel like I'm talking to another person who understands football. And I feel like I learned something. I feel like he learned something. I think we've got slightly different strengths. I think I'm a little more, I don't know how to explain this. He's more of a nerd about certain positions that I don't know as well. And I think I know other things. I think we just really complement each other well. And I like our dynamic. So Marcus, let's talk. All right. That's probably creepy. I don't know. Does anyone want to work with me, bro? I'm along the ocean via train tracks at night with sunglasses on. Like, I don't know. I do my own thing, man. I'd love to work with Marcus, though. He's awesome. 2 topics left. This weekend is NFL Week 9. There are a couple games I'm really excited for. The Dolphins at Chicago is interesting. I'm excited anytime I get to watch Miami's offense. That'll be really cool. That's Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. But we also get to see Bradley Chubb play for the first time in Miami. And I guess technically in Chicago, but for Miami. And I'm really curious to watch Bradley Chubb paired up with Jalen Phillips, their other really good edge rusher. And I worry that Justin Fields, the Bears quarterback in this game, could really struggle with a pass rush getting after him. Although I love watching Justin Fields in the Bears offense, and it's been so fun to track the progress this fall for the Bears offense. They've gotten better and better, and the play calling's gotten better, and the play design has gotten better. It's going to be a fun and exciting game. Like, these are 2 teams that I have followed probably the closest this year in the NFL, and now they're playing each other, which is just beautiful and awesome. I'm curious how much Chicago uses their new receiver, Chase Claypool. He's still learning the system. Like, Bradley Chubb is going to have an easier time inserting himself into the Dolphins starting lineup than Chase Claypool was, because it's easier to come in and play defensive end and get after the quarterback, or edge rusher, edge linebacker position. Receiver, it's a lot of complicated stuff you got to learn. They're going to have to kind of bring Chase Claypool in slowly. But nonetheless, this is an awesome game with 2 teams I've followed really closely, and I'm very, very excited. Colts Patriots is interesting. It's an old rivalry that's kind of dead now. The old Peyton Manning, Tom Brady era is now long over. Although the Colts did once hire Josh McDaniel, and then Josh McDaniels bailed and said, I'm going back to New England. So there's been moments even after Brady and Manning that has kept this rivalry going. But what we get to see in this game is Sam Ehlinger, the Colts quarterback, play in his second game in the NFL as Indy's starting quarterback. And that'll be fascinating. Sam Ehlinger against Belichick's defense, a really complicated defense that is really difficult on young quarterbacks. That's great. Plus, I'm curious how Patriots quarterback Mac Jones plays in this game, because he's had a rough year and has even dealt with a quarterback controversy against Bailey Zappi, their backup. So it's a big game for both teams, and I'm really fascinated to see what happens. Seattle at Arizona is a massive game. It's an NFC West divisional game. Seattle's 5-3. They're on top of the division. Geno Smith has played great all year, but the pressure is on for Arizona. Arizona's 3-5. It's been an ugly year. I think it's a must-win game for the Arizona Cardinals because if they fall to 3-6, there's a great chance they fire their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. Minnesota at Washington is really interesting. The Vikings are 6-1. I'm curious if the Vikings can keep their winning going. And Taylor Heineke, Washington's quarterback, is 2-0 as the starter for the Commanders. Beating Minnesota would be a really big, validating moment for Taylor Heineke. He is trying to keep the starting job in Washington and keep Carson Wentz on the bench. So, man, if you're like a person who loves the underdog here, you're rooting for Taylor Heineke to beat a really good team, Minnesota, and further show why Taylor Heineke should be the guy in Washington. How about the Rams at Tampa? I think it's interesting because Tom Brady has struggled this year, and Tom Brady has been going through a divorce, and I'm curious of finalizing that divorce and cutting things off and starting fresh, if his personal life being squared away could help him on the field. So keep your eye on Tom Brady in Tampa this weekend. I'm interested in that. 6 teams have the week off this weekend. These are the teams on their bye week during NFL Week 9. Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, Pittsburgh, and the 49ers. I'm really curious because the 49ers, are on their bye week. That means that Christian McCaffrey is going to come back after the bye week with time to have fully learned their system. And the 49ers have time to fully game plan with Christian McCaffrey. So I'm curious what kind of stuff they do after this weekend. But this week, the 49ers are not playing. The Chargers play Atlanta. LA's got to look good, man. LA is coming off of a bye week. Another train. Hold on. There's a train going by. Never park by the train tracks, Zach. Obviously. The Chargers play Atlanta, and LA's got to look good, man. They're coming off of their bye week, and their head coach, Brandon Staley, is at risk of getting fired. So LA, it's a must-win game for them against Atlanta. By the way, it's 2 former Oregon quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, Marcus Mariota. I think that's kind of interesting, kind of a fun little storyline there. The Panthers play at Cincinnati. The Bengals are trying to figure out how to win without Jamar Chase at receiver. It's a winnable game. It's a good opportunity for them to figure out how to do that. But I'm also really, really curious how P.J. Walker plays at quarterback for Carolina. I believe he's like a decent level starter, kind of along the same lines as Taylor Heineke in Washington. I think he's definitely better than Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. He's cheaper too. Plus, he's very mobile. He can run around and extend plays. Keep your eye on P.J. Walker in Carolina. Packers at Lions. The Packers are 3-5. Detroit is 1-6. Green Bay's got to win here. They're 3-5. They got to win against Detroit to keep their season alive, in my opinion. 3-6 is an insurmountable hole, and your year is over. Playoffs are probably not going to happen. They might not happen anyway, but you got to win to get to 4-5 to keep your season alive if you are Green Bay. Bills at Jets. Buffalo should win this game, but I'm really curious if Jets quarterback Zach Wilson can take care of the football, make good decisions, stay disciplined, and just not have boneheaded throws like he made Week 8 against New England. Raiders at Jaguars is a game with, it's 2 2-win teams, 2-5 and 2-6. Both have new coaches. Both have a lot to prove, in my opinion. The Raiders are coming off of an embarrassing 24-0 loss to New Orleans. So I think there's more pressure on the Raiders right now. I was really kind of saying, well, a lot of their losses are close games and tough losses. Last week was awful. And so Derek Carr and the Raiders have to play well this week at Jacksonville. Sunday Night Football is not a great game, in my opinion. I don't even know if that's fair to say. It's the Titans at Kansas City. The Titans are a good team, man. They're a playoff team. They're going to win their division. They beat up on a lot of football teams. So let me say again, the Titans are pretty good. They can beat a lot of football teams. But I don't believe they can beat a juggernaut like Kansas City. I think when you run into Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, Tennessee doesn't have enough to get it done. They've got lower-level quarterback play, and against the best of the best in the NFL, I don't think Tennessee matches up. I'm predicting Kansas City to win, but we'll see. I just think Tennessee, they're an awesome team. It's going to make probably a playoff run, but they're not going to win a Super Bowl, and we're going to see why on Sunday. Monday Night Football is Baltimore at New Orleans. We get to see new Ravens linebacker Roquan Smith. We also get to see Deshaun Jackson play for the first time for the Ravens. That'll be fun. I believe Baltimore is going to win this game easily, though, and the Saints, a lot of talent, not a great quarterback. It's been a frustrating year to watch for the New Orleans Saints. Let's end today's show with Formula One. If you don't like Formula One, have a great day. Take care. If you like F1, here we go. Last weekend was the Mexico City Grand Prix. It was kind of a slow start to the race. No crazy drama happened. The race really came down to tire strategy at the end. Max Verstappen and Red Bull, they won easily, and Red Bull started on soft tires. Then at their pit stop, switched to medium tires. Mercedes started on medium tires, then switched to the slower hard tires. And, for Mercedes, the belief was that eventually Max's medium tires would wear down and he'd lose pace. But that never happened. He pulled away. He won easily. And, it's just a miscalculation, in my opinion, for Mercedes. The podium was Max Verstappen in first, Lewis Hamilton in second, Sergio Perez in third. Max Verstappen won for the 14th time. That is a new record in Formula One. But even Max would, I think, tell you, that's not a very impressive record when you realize they have way more races now than they did in the Michael Schumacher era. Fourth in the race was George Russell. Fifth was Carlos Sainz. Sixth was Charles Leclerc. The first 6 drivers in this race were all the big 3 teams, Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari. That meant the fun question was, who is going to get 7th place? Who is going to be the best of the rest? That would be fan favorite Daniel Ricciardo. Danny Rick! It was cool to see the guy do well. Danny Rick has had such a brutal last couple of years in Formula One. He started on medium tires, did a really long first stint, and then eventually put on quicker soft tires. And basically, Danny Rick did the strategy that Mercedes should have done with Lewis Hamilton. Start on medium tires, run it as long as humanly possible, then put on the faster soft tires. There was also added drama for Danny Rick because he got a 10-second time penalty for making contact with Yuki Tsunoda. The penalty was fair, and Yuki Tsunoda had bad damage, had to retire. So because of that, Danny Rick was given a 10-second time penalty for that contact with Yuki Tsunoda. That meant Danny Rick had to finish 10 seconds ahead of whoever was in 8th place, which he did, by the way. But that kind of created a fun tension at the end of the race where you're like, oh man, is Danny Rick going to do it? He's got way more pace. And you watch the gap, I believe over Esteban Ocon, get slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger. The only other notes I have from this race really are that on lap 65 of 71, Fernando Alonso had to retire with engine failure. That kind of sucked for him. He was battling with Daniel Ricciardo for a while. Now, after Mexico, Sergio Perez is, there's 2 key battles right now, first of all, in Formula One. One of the driver standings, the battle for second, and the battle for fourth, and the constructor standings is also really interesting. Right now, Sergio Perez is 5 points ahead of Charles Leclerc in the battle for second in the driver standings. Now, the other fun battle in Formula One is the battle for fourth in the constructor standings between Alpine and McLaren. Right now, Alpine is 7 points ahead of McLaren with 2 races left. You got Brazil and Abu Dhabi. The next race is on Sunday, November 13th in Brazil. Guys, that's an episode. That's this stack of papers, the longest episode I've ever done, I think, in the history of the show. We'll see how it works out when I edit out the trains going by. But what a fun one. I love you so much. I live in my truck. And it's pretty awesome. I'm making the best of it. I'm having a good time. I get to go on adventures and drive around. And I love you so much. I love you very much. I love doing this. I'll always make content till the day I'm dead. That's what I do. I make videos. I'm a weird, creative, nerdy guy. I like doing this stuff. Hope you have a great day. And, I appreciate you, by the way, a lot. Bam, we are done. Oh, wait. Let's go find that spider. This is going to be miserable. Oh, my God. I don't want to do this. Oh, I should have used that paper. Damn. All right, let's go try to kill that spider. Turn this so you can hear what's going on. The horror. I don't see it. That's a more scary thought, actually.